नमस्कार दोस्तों। आज हम देखने वाले हैं कि जो कर्मयोगी भारत जो है उस पोर्टल पे कोर्सेज को कैसे किस प्रकार से हम कंप्लीट करेंगे। सबसे पहले तो हम यहाँ पे जो भी चैटबॉट वो सब बंद करके हम कोशिश करेंगे कि लर्न पे जाएं। लर्न में आपके यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हो कि बहुत सारे कोर्स हैं। कोई भी कोर्स सिलेक्ट, यहाँ पे एक हमारा ऑलरेडी जो कोर्स जो आधा हुआ है उस कोर्स को हम सिलेक्ट करते हैं। ये लगभग 58% पे बना हुआ है, तो इस पे क्लिक करते हैं और हम देखेंगे कि हम देखेंगे कि इसको इस मॉडल को किस प्रकार से हम अभी कंप्लीट करने वाले हैं। तो सबसे पहले हम देखेंगे कि मॉड्यूल 1 पे क्लिक करने के बाद देखो ये है मॉड्यूल 1 पे। अगर हम क्लिक करते हैं यहाँ पे टोटल 1 2 टोटल 3 मॉड्यूल है। मॉड्यूल 1 ऑलरेडी हो चुका है मेरा और मॉड्यूल 2 मॉड्यूल 3 बाकी है। ठीक है, सो यहाँ पे आप देख ही सकते हो कि किस प्रकार से यहाँ पे इसका स्टार्ट डिस्कशन है, ट्रांसक्रिप्ट है, क्या कहाँ पे क्या क्या है, सब कुछ यहाँ पे मतलब इन डिटेल दिया हुआ है। ये ट्रांसक्रिप्ट है शायद मॉड्यूल 1 का वीडियो का, जो सबसे पहले जो वीडियो है उसका, जो कि हमने ऑलरेडी देखे हुए हैं।
Prevention of sexual harassment of women at the workplace. In this video, we will identify and define sexual harassment and understand the prevention of sexual harassment of women at workplace under the POSH Act 2013. In society, there are often certain gender stereotypes that favor and empower one gender over the other. This leads to discrimination, bias and sexual harassment. Let's look at an example of sexual harassment at the workplace. Let's look at a situation. Reena is a bright young working professional. She was busy working when her manager Sanjay came over to discuss a new project. He suddenly leaned over her shoulder to open a file on her computer. He kept getting closer to her face while working on the computer. Reena felt really uncomfortable and nervous and did not like his behavior. What do you think Reena should do in this situation? Is this a form of sexual harassment? As the Supreme Court defines, sexual harassment includes unwelcome sexually determined behavior, whether direct or implied. It includes physical contact and advances, demand or request for sexual favors, sexually colored remarks, showing any kind of pornography or any other unwelcome physical, verbal, non-verbal conduct of a sexual nature. This also includes a promise of preferential treatment and torment at the workplace, which in turn interferes with the women's work and makes it a hostile work environment. Humiliating treatment at the workplace is also likely to affect
यूजुअली यहाँ पे सॉफ्टवेयर नहीं, मतलब थोड़ा सा प्रॉब्लम है, मतलब एक एक प्रॉब्लम हम आइडेंटिफाई करते जा रहे हैं। यहाँ पे जब यहाँ पे जो हाईलाइट हो रहा था ना वो भी नीचे चला गया, देखो। तो अगर आपको ट्रांसक्रिप्ट ही पढ़नी है तो ये वीडियो आप नहीं देख सकते। तो थोड़ा सा टेक्निकल इशू है यहाँ पे। ये सॉफ्टवेयर यहाँ पे एक्चुअली इसको यहाँ पे अलग से स्क्रॉल बार देना चाहिए था, शायद मिस हो गया होगा। एनीवे, लेट्स कंटिन्यू।
the health and safety of women. Sexual harassment can be categorized in two forms: quid pro quo and hostile work environment. Quid pro quo literally means this for that. In context of sexual harassment, it means attaching professional benefits with an employee's submission to sexual advances or requests made by their senior. For instance, a manager asking or suggesting a woman to go on a date with him and in return offering her a promotion or a bonus. Her refusal to comply with the request could lead to her demotion, a tarnished work record, or being subjected to difficult working conditions. The other form of sexual harassment is the hostile work environment. It involves conditions of work or behavior towards a female worker which makes it unbearable for her to be there. For instance, making jokes about a woman's weight, ethnicity or clothes, or spreading rumors about her. This could be mentally tormenting and creates a hostile working environment for that woman. If you are sexually harassed at your workplace, you must immediately report the incident to the management or the Human Resources Department and seek redressal under the Sexual Harassment of Women at the Workplace, Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013. Until the mid-1990s, the concept of sexual harassment at workplace was not recognized by Indian courts. It was the Bhavri Devi gang rape case that shook the Indian courts and led to the promulgation of the POSH Act. Bhavri Devi was a woman employed as a social worker in a village in Rajasthan. She was working to create awareness as well as report incidents of child marriages to the authorities. In 1992, she tried to prevent the child marriage of a 9-month-old girl, which enraged the villagers, who later gang raped her in order to take revenge. In 1997, Vishaka, conglomerate of women's organizations working in Rajasthan, along with 3 other women's organizations, filed a writ petition in the Supreme Court to bring the perpetrators to justice. For the first time, the Supreme Court defined sexual harassment at the workplace and promulgated measures to curb it by strongly advocating that a code of conduct be established in every workplace. Though often referred to as a set of guidelines or Vishaka guidelines, these were no less than a law passed by the Court of Law. It was only later that the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace, Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act came into effect on 9th December 2013. Sexual harassment can be prevented by providing a safe and professional environment at the workplace. The employees of the company should feel physically as well as mentally safe. They should never feel that they are being taken advantage of or are being exploited mentally, physically or sexually. The benefits of preventing sexual harassment at workplace include maintaining a healthy and engaged workforce. Employees who are harassed or witness harassment often experience both physical and mental health issues. It is important to think proactively about how the employer can cultivate a safe and respectful environment for all, whether through POSH training and keynote presentations or discuss with all employees. Establishing your team. Sexual harassment incidents could break a strong team, which in turn could lead to employees leaving the organization. When bad words spread about the organization, it becomes difficult to recruit valuable talent. Also, the lengthy onboarding process drains an organization of time, money and resources. Therefore, it is important to build confidence in the team that they are physically and mentally safe in the organization. Avoiding penalties and litigation. Hefty penalties have been prescribed for employers for non-compliance with the provisions of the POSH Act. There are monetary penalties as well as severe penalties like cancellation of license or registration. Now that you know more about the POSH Act and its provisions, do you think Reena faced sexual harassment at the workplace? The answer is yes. It would have been best had Sanjay avoided such a situation to arise in the first place. He should have avoided leaning over Reena and should have asked her before using her laptop. He should have also maintained an arm's distance from her. As an employee, you must always voice concern towards any unwelcome behavior or gesture to prevent sexual harassment at the workplace. Remember, you are a valued employee, and it is every employer's responsibility to provide you with a safe and respectful work environment.
तो दोस्तों, ये यहाँ पे हमने अपना मॉड्यूल 1 का पहला जो पार्ट है कंप्लीट कर लिया है। अभी ऑटोमेटिकली आप देख सकते हो कि अगले अपने थिंक मॉड्यूल 1 पे, जो कि है 9 मिनट 50 सेकेंड्स का, ऑटोमेटिकली आ गया है। ये एक स्कॉर्म फॉर्मेट है, SCORM, यानी कि इंटरेक्टिव है। इसको आप बीच में मतलब छोड़ नहीं सकते हो। अगर बीच में छोड़ा तो इसका मतलब जो प्रोग्रेस है वो सेव नहीं होता है। तो हम इसे स्टार्ट करते हैं।
Prevention of sexual harassment of women at the workplace. In this section, you will get the opportunity to learn more about the POSH Act, and then think about the aspects. Click the Start button to begin. Let's understand the key terms used in POSH Act. Click each tab to learn more.
यहाँ पे आप देख ही सकते हो कि यहाँ पे टैब्स दिए हुए हैं। हर एक टैब को क्लिक करके आपको जो भी है वो पढ़ के सुन के आगे बढ़ना है।
Gender bias is a form of prejudice between the men and women based on their gender. For instance, a boy's education being given more importance than a girl's education. Gender gap is a difference between the way men and women are treated in society, or between what they do and achieve. For example, a man being paid more than a woman at the same job role, with the same aptitude. Being gender neutral is an approach to planning and policymaking that assumes the impact on women, men, girls and boys as if they were part of one homogeneous group. For instance, assuming that men are usually taller than women, fixing the height of the podium in conference halls on the basis of the height of men. Gender stereotyping is assignment of roles, tasks, and responsibilities to a particular gender on the basis of preconceived prejudices. For instance, we assume all masons to be men and all nurses to be women. Gender role perception refers to different tasks, responsibilities and expectations that the society defines and allocates to men, women, boys, and girls. These are not necessarily determined by biological differences and therefore can change with time and in different situations. Gender discrimination is when one gender is given preferential treatment, for example promoting a male employee over a female, when both candidates are equally deserving. The three most prominent facets of gender discrimination are societal perpetration, domestic violence, and sexual harassment at workplace. Click the next button to continue.
जैसे ही इंस्ट्रक्शन आया कि ये सब तो हो गए मेरे, नेक्स्ट बटन को क्लिक करना है। हमें नेक्स्ट बटन को क्लिक करके अपने कोर्स को आगे बढ़ाना।
Sexual harassment has traditionally been divided into two well-known forms. Let's take a look. Click each tab to learn more. It literally means this for that. Applying this to sexual harassment, it means seeking sexual favors or advances in exchange for work benefits, such as promises of promotion, higher pay, professional advancements, etc. This type of sexual harassment mostly holds a woman to ransom, as her refusal to comply with a request can be met with retaliatory action, such as dismissal, demotion, memos, tarnished work record, and difficult work conditions. A hostile working environment is a click the next button to get more pervasive form of sexual harassment. It commonly involves mental harassment towards a male or female worker, where going through torment every day at the workplace, makes it unbearable for them. For instance, people gossiping behind someone's back, spreading rumors, or commenting upon a person's appearance, skin color, gender, age, ethnicity, etc.
आपने अगर नोटिस किया है तो पता नहीं है, लेकिन जैसे ही मैंने इसको क्लिक किया था, क्लिक नेक्स्ट बटन का भी ये आया था। शायद ये सॉफ्टवेयर का कुछ प्रॉब्लम है। मतलब हर एक सॉफ्टवेयर के प्रॉब्लम को मैं जस्ट इंडिकेट करता जाऊँ, क्योंकि मैं ये वीडियो बनाने वालों को भी शेयर करना चाहता हूँ, क्योंकि क्या कुछ है, कैसे है। अगर पूरा कोर्स करते हुए मैं ऐसा नहीं कहीं पे स्किप कर रहा हूँ, पूरा का पूरा कोर्स जितना टाइम लगता है उतने टाइम में ही करके इसको मैं ट्राई करूँगा और आपको भी दिखाऊंगा।
Let's learn more about the Vishakha guidelines. Drag and drop each tab to know more.
अच्छा, ये इंटरेस्टिंग पार्ट है। यहाँ पे आपको ईच जो टैब आपको यहाँ पे जो टोटल 6 के 6 टैब है, टैब को आपको खींच के इस वाले में डालना है और वो प्ले हो जाता है। चलिए देख।
Employer's responsibility. It is the responsibility of the employer to ensure that guidelines have been laid down to effectively and efficiently deal with the sexual harassment instances brought forward for redressal. The fundamental rights of women workers should be protected with appropriate legal action. Criminal proceeding. When a conduct amounts to a specific offence under the Indian Penal Code, or under any other law, the employer should take appropriate action, in accordance with law. A complaint should be made to the appropriate authority. The company must make sure that the victims, or the witnesses are protected under the law while dealing with complaints of sexual harassment. Complaint mechanism. Every organization should have a complaint mechanism to redress cases of sexual harassment. They should be time-bound, and each complaint should be treated fairly with the same set of guidelines. Complaint committee. Apart from a complaint mechanism, there should also be a special counselor, or other support service to deal with the complaint. This committee must also maintain confidentiality. It should be headed by a woman, and more than half of the committee should include women. To prevent the possibility of any undue pressure or influence from senior levels, the committee should involve a third party, either an NGO, or another independent body, who is familiar with the issue of sexual harassment. Workers' initiative. Employees should be encouraged to raise issues of sexual harassment at the workers' meeting, or any other appropriate forum. They should be able to discuss the same in employer-employee meetings. Awareness. Female employees should be made aware of their rights. Further, guidelines should be created and notified in a suitable manner. Click the next button to continue. Now, let's learn more about the definition and features of the POSH Act. Click each tab to learn more. Sexual harassment includes physical contact and advances, demand or request for sexual favors, or sexually colored remarks, showing any pornography, or any other unwelcome physical, verbal, non-verbal conduct of a sexual nature. There are a number of steps that can be taken by employers to prevent sexual harassment at your workplace, such as adopting a clear sexual harassment prevention policy, training employees, supervisors, and managers, and generating awareness about identifying and preventing sexual harassment at the workplace. The Act states that publishing or revealing the content of the complaint must be prohibited. The identity and addresses of the aggrieved woman, respondent, and witnesses, or any information related to conciliation and inquiry proceedings should also not be revealed or made public. The action taken by the employer or the district officer under the provisions of this Act shall not be published, communicated, or made known to the public, press, and media in any manner. The POSH Act lays down the definition of sexual harassment and seeks to provide a mechanism for redressing complaints. It provides for the constitution of an internal complaints committee at the workplace and a local complaints committee at the district and block levels. A district officer, district collector or deputy collector, is responsible for facilitating and monitoring the implementation of the provisions under the Act. Click the next button to continue. Lastly, let's take a look at the benefits of preventing sexual harassment at the workplace. Click each tab to learn more. Preventing sexual harassment helps in winning the trust of team members. This helps in strengthening the workplace culture. Also, the policy helps send a strong message to the employees of the company as it comes from a higher authority. The company and authorities must empower bystanders to report any cases where they feel that their colleague, acquaintance, or an employee of a company is being harassed, but is too timid or embarrassed to complain to the higher authorities. The company and authorities must encourage the victim to report the incident, without being fearful or embarrassed. The victim should be aware of the policy guidelines, which state that their identity, or the complaint made by them will be kept confidential and anonymous, and they have faith that justice will be served. The employees of a company should be aware of the acceptable and unacceptable behavior at the workplace. For instance, sharing distasteful jokes, passing remarks on appearance or skin color, or spreading rumors, is considered unacceptable and inappropriate. Click the next button to continue. What is the assignment of roles, tasks and responsibilities to a particular gender on the basis of preconceived prejudices? Drag the correct option and drop it in the box, and then click Submit.
ये बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग है। यहाँ पे क्वेश्चन है, यहाँ पे आपको फिर इन ब्लैंक्स दिखा है। ये बस क्लिक नहीं करना है, आपको इसको यहाँ पे क्लिक करके ड्रैग करके इसमें ड्रॉप करना है करेक्ट आंसर। तो द क्वेश्चन है डैश इज द असाइनमेंट ऑफ रोल्स टास्क एंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ द पर्टिकुलर जेंडर ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ प्री कंसीव्ड प्रोजेक्ट। आई थिंक द आंसर है जेंडर स्टीरियोटाइपिंग। सो हम इसको ड्रैग करके सबमिट करेंगे।
That's great. Gender stereotyping is the assignment of roles, tasks and responsibilities to a particular gender on the basis of preconceived prejudices. To redress a sexual harassment complaint, what should be created by every organization or company? Internal Complaint Committee, Complaint Mechanism, Workers' Initiative, Criminal Proceeding. Select the correct option and then click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options. That's great. To redress a sexual harassment complaint, an internal complaint committee should be created by every organization or company. What constitutes sexual harassment? Asking the employee to work overtime, distasteful or sexually colored joke, remarks on skin color or ethnicity, sharing an obscene or sexually explicit image. Select 3 correct options and click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
ये भी इंटरेस्टिंग है। यहाँ पे एक करेक्ट आंसर नहीं है, बल्कि इसमें 3 करेक्ट आंसर्स है। आपको तीनों सिलेक्ट करने हैं, ठीक है। सो सबसे पहले व्हाट कॉन्स्टिट्यूट सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट, इसका आंसर है कि वर्क ओवर टाइम नहीं हो सकता है। डिस्टेस्टफुल सेक्सुअली कलर्ड जोक करेक्ट है। रिमार्क्स ऑन स्किन कलर एथनिसिटी मतलब ये भी सही है। शेयरिंग ऑन एन ऑब्सीन सेक्सुअल एक्सप्लिसिट इमेज ये भी सही है। सो आई थिंक दिस आर द 3 करेक्ट आंसर्स। लेट अस।
That's great. Sexual harassment includes physical contact and advances, demand or request for sexual favors, or sexually colored remarks, showing any pornography, or any other unwelcome physical, verbal, non-verbal conduct of a sexual nature.
जैसे हम ये अपना कोर्स यहाँ पे थिंक मॉड्यूल हो गया है, यहाँ पे फिनिश करने की कोशिश करते हैं, ये फिनिश नहीं हो रहा है। आप देख सकते हो ये फिनिश नहीं हो रहा है क्योंकि यहाँ पे सॉफ्टवेयर में ग्लिच है। ठीक है। और यहाँ पे प्रीवियस जा सकते हो और यहाँ पे आपको ऊपर में नेक्स्ट का बटन मिलेगा, आप इसको क्लिक करके डू मॉडल में ट्रैवल कर सकते हो यहाँ पे ऊपर से। ठीक है। लेकिन फिनिश होने पे ऑटोमेटिकली जो आना चाहिए था वो नहीं आ रहा है, लेकिन मेरा ये कोर्स हुआ है इसलिए प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। अगर आपका नहीं हुआ है तो वापस से वही प्रॉब्लम आएगा। सो ठीक है। हम ये वाला डो मॉडल प्ले करेंगे।
Here is an opportunity to practice and test your knowledge on the newly learned concepts and acquired skills from this lesson. Select a game mode.
ये भी इंटरेस्टिंग है, यहाँ पे टेस्ट मोड है और प्ले मोड है। हम सिलेक्ट करने वाले टेस्ट मोड। ठीक है।
Test your newly acquired knowledge on the advisory given for the prevention of sexual harassment of women at the workplace under the POSH Act, 2013. Click the Start button to begin this activity. Suman is an engineer. She is very confident of being promoted this time. To her surprise, the promotion was given to Ravi. When Suman approached her boss, he said to her that the new role require field visits and late shifts, which she may not be able to adjust to. Is Suman's boss discriminating against her? Being a woman, Suman may not be able to adjust with the new role and the timings. Suman's boss is discriminating against her because she is a woman. Suman's boss has a preconceived gender role perception that has led to discrimination. Suman's boss is being considerate to her given the new role and shift timings. Select two correct options and then click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
अच्छा, यहाँ पे लिखा है कि सुमन एक लड़की है, सुमन एक इंजीनियर है। शी इज वेरी कॉन्फिडेंट एंड ऑफ बीइंग प्रमोटेड दिस टाइम। To her surprise, the promotion was given to Ravi. When Suman approached to her boss, the boss said to her that the new role required field visits and late shifts, which she may not be able to adjust to. इस सुमन्स बॉस यस, ये मतलब ये जो बॉस है उसने उसको अंडर एस्टिमेट किया होगा शायद, उन्हें कहीं कर पाएगी, लेकिन एक बार चांस देके तो देखना है। उसने पहले ही इसको स्टीरियोटाइप कर दिया। तो इसमें है ऑप्शन देखिए, बीइंग अ वुमन सुमन मे नॉट बी एबल टू एडजस्ट विद द न्यू रोल एंड द टाइमिंग्स। सुमन वाज डिस्क्रिमिनेटेड अगेंस्ट हर बिकॉज शी इज अ वुमन, ये करेक्ट है। और बहुत सारे प्री कंसीव्ड जेंडर रोल परसेप्शन, मतलब लेट नाइट काम नहीं कर सकती, ऐसा है वैसा है। सो ये दोनों आंसर है। सबमिट करके देखते हैं।
Shweta is a bright, young woman who works as a clerk and is the only female employee in her team. She has constantly been teased by one of her seniors, who passes lewd remarks at her, sings vulgar songs, and uses double entendre in her presence. Shweta finds this very disturbing and difficult to focus on her work under these circumstances. Identify the form of sexual harassment. Quid pro quo. Gender bias. Hostile work environment. Gender inequality. Select the correct option and then click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
अच्छा, सो यहाँ पे है एक श्वेता करके लड़की। शी इज अ ब्राइट यंग वुमन हु वर्क्स एज अ क्लर्क इन द ओनली फीमेल एम्प्लॉय इन हर टीम. She has constantly been teased by one of her seniors who passed lewd remarks at her, sings vulgar songs, and uses double entendre for her in her presence. Shweta finds this very disturbing and difficult to focus on her work and the circumstances identify what type of sexual harassment she is facing. सो ये क्यूट्रो को तो नहीं हो सकता है, ये जेंडर बायस नहीं है, हॉस्टाइल वर्क एनवायरमेंट। यहाँ पे आपको क्लिक द करेक्ट, ये है हॉस्टाइल वर्क एनवायरमेंट। यहाँ पे और एक मैं चीज़ आपको बताना चाहता हूँ, ये आप जैसे ही मैं सबमिट करता हूँ यहाँ पे कोई करेक्ट आंसर नहीं है, ये भी सॉफ्टवेयर में ग्लिच है।
Sexual harassment includes unwelcome sexually determined behavior, whether direct or implied. It could be verbal, non-verbal, or physical in nature. Sometimes, non-sexual behavior may also cause mental stress and affect a person's work. From the given scenarios, identify the behavior that is a form of sexual harassment. Rupa is a little slow at her work, compared to her colleagues, and Sushil often suggests her ways to improve her productivity. Manisha is interviewing for a position. The interviewer, Ranjit, asks Manisha to have dinner and drinks with him before moving on to the next stage in the hiring process. Manisha is uncomfortable and afraid. Narendra often compliments Ashima's presentation skills. Aman and Akanksha sit next to each other. Aman often tries to touch Akanksha's hand while trying to use her laptop. Mahesh likes to shake hands and greet all his teammates every morning. Rohan often makes derogatory comments on Neha's ethnicity and her outfits. Drag and drop each statement into the relevant box, and then click Submit.
वेरी गुड, ये भी बहुत अच्छी एक्टिविटी है। यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हो कि जैसे कि पहला रोहन ऑफन मेक्स डिरोगेटरी कमेंट, ये है कंसिडर्ड टू बी यस। और महेश लाइक्स टू शेक हैंड्स एंड ग्रीट ऑल हिज टीममेट्स एवरी मॉर्निंग, नॉट कंसिडर्ड सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट। Aman and Akshata sits next to each other. Aman often tries to touch Akshata's hand while trying, ये है sexual activity। नरेंद्र often compliments Ashma's presentation skills, नहीं है। Manisha is interviewed for position. The interviewer asks Manisha to have dinner and drinks with him before moving on to the next stage on to the hiring process. Manisha is uncomfortable and afraid. यहाँ पे ऑफर दिया है, बट आई डोंट थिंक सो दिस इज कंसिडर सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट। जस्ट हैव डिनर एंड ड्रिंक्स विथ हिम। डिफिकल्ट है, शायद ये क्विड प्रो को हो, तो मैं इसको यहाँ डाल देता हूँ। रूपा इज लिटिल स्लो एट हर वर्क कंपेयर टू कलीग्स। सुशील ऑफन सजेस्ट वे टू इम्प्रूव हर प्रोडक्टिविटी, नहीं है। इसको हम करेंगे सबमिट।
Aman works at a bank. He has a very jovial personality. Once, while talking to Nidhi, he patted on her shoulder. Nidhi showed discomfort and, noticing this, Aman apologized and didn't do it again. Nidhi is now unsure about whether it was acceptable or an unacceptable behavior. Click Next to move to the question. Help Nidhi identify the unacceptable behavior at workplace from the given scenarios. Patting on a woman's shoulder or back, if it makes her uncomfortable. Leaning over the shoulder of a woman. Making comments on a woman's ethnicity, attire or hairstyle. Sharing indecent jokes in the presence of a female colleague. Complimenting a woman colleague on her marketing skills. Congratulating a woman colleague on her promotion. Select 4 correct options and then click Submit.
तो यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हो, यहाँ पे है हेल्प निधि टू आइडेंटिफाई एक्सेप्टेबल बिहेवियर एट अनएक्सेप्टेबल बिहेवियर। ओके, सो पैटिंग ऑन वुमन्स शोल्डर और बैक इफ इट मेक्स हर अनकंफर्टेबल, ये अनएक्सेप्टेबल है। leaning over the shoulder of a woman unacceptable है। making नहीं, ये भी unacceptable है। sharing incident jokes on the presence of female colleague indecent unacceptable है। complimenting woman colleague on her marketing skills ये acceptable है। compliment तो दे सकते हो मुझे woman on her colleague है, तो नहीं है। तो आप देख सकते हो कि इतने तो है, हम इसको कर देते हैं सबमिट।
Pravina feels that her manager, Ankush, is trying to get close to her. He brushes against her while walking across the hallway, asks her to have dinner with him after work, and sends her messages late at night. Ravina has requested Ankush to stop, however, this behavior has not stopped yet. Ravina's colleague observes her discomfort, and advises Ravina to go through the company's sexual harassment prevention policy and the POSH Act, and then take appropriate action. Click Next to move to the question. Identify the benefits of having knowledge about the POSH Act and the company's policy on prevention of sexual harassment at the workplace. Creates awareness about acceptable and unacceptable behavior at the workplace. Helps in identifying sexual harassment-related behavior at the workplace. Creates awareness about raising complaints and the redressal mechanism. Builds confidence in employees and makes them feel protected. Strengthens the work culture by creating a safe work environment. Empowers bystanders to raise concerns on behalf of a fellow colleague. Encourages employees to work harder and increase their productivity. Suggests ways to get a promotion at the workplace. Select 6 correct options and then click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
अच्छा, यहाँ पे है identify the benefits of having knowledge about POSH Act and the company's policy on the prevention of sexual harassment at the workplace. यहाँ पे great benefits, क्या benefits हैं? So सबसे पहले benefit ये है कि behavior पता चलता है, creates awareness about मतलब क्या acceptable है क्या नहीं है, helps in identify sexual harassment related behavior at workplace, creates awareness about raising complaints and redressal mechanism, builds confidence in employees and makes them feel protected, strengths at कितना चूज करना है मेरे को 6 ना 1 2 3 4 हाँ strengths and work culture by creating safe work environment ठीक है, empowers bystanders to raise concerns behave fellow colleague, empowers bystanders to raise concerns on a behalf okay ठीक है ये भी सही है, encourage employees to work harder, increase productivity, suggest ways to get promotion at workplace. नहीं नहीं यही है, आप देख सकते हैं 1 2 3 4 5 और 6 करेंगे सबमिट.
Congratulations! You have successfully completed this lesson.
सो आप देख सकते हो कि यहाँ पे ये लेसन कंप्लीट हुआ है. सो मैंने इसको करेंगे इसको फिनिश. आप देखेंगे कि इसको जब मैं फिनिश करता हूँ तो ये आगे नहीं जा रहा है. ठीक है, शुड हैव गॉन, नहीं जा रहा है. लेकिन ये मेरा मॉडल तो ऑलरेडी हो चुका है, फिर भी मतलब मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि अगर इस क्लिक करने पे अगर ये आगे जाता तो कुछ मतलब अच्छी लगती ना. फेल्ट नाइस. नाउ क्लिकिंग हियर नेक्स्ट. और ये यहाँ पे है एक्सप्लोर मॉड्यूल करके, यहाँ पे मैं इसको करूँगा प्ले.
In this section, you will get an opportunity to explore additional resources to expand your knowledge on the topic. Click the Start button to begin. Click on each resource link to discover more.
अभी ये भी बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है. यहाँ पे 4 वेब लिंक्स दिए हुए हैं. इसको मैं क्लिक करके खींचने आप देख सकते हो कि जो फर्स्ट लिंक है उसे क्लिक करके मैं पढ़ने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ. और रिफ्रेश करेंगे एक बार. फर्स्ट जो लिंक है वो शायद ओपन ही नहीं हो रही है. ठीक है, तो इसमें आप कुछ नहीं कर सकते. आप बस कर सकते हो सेकेंड लिंक को ओपन कर. आप देख सकते हो कि सेकेंड लिंक को भी ओपन करने से एरर 1016 से एरर हो जाएंगे. व्हाट हैपेंड देन, व्हाट कैन आई डू. दोनों पेजेस काम नहीं कर रहे हैं. आप देखेंगे थर्ड पेज को शायद वी हैव हैविंग ट्रबल. थर्ड पेज भी ओपन नहीं हो रही है. आप देखेंगे लास्ट पेज को, लकीली लास्ट पेज ओपन हो रही है. वो एक पीडीएफ फाइल है कहीं पे iitg.ac.academic.in पे. यहाँ पे है लॉस एंड प्रोसीजर सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट द वर्क प्लेस. सो यहाँ पे हमारे पास एक ऑप्शन था मेरे पास शायद टूल्स में. शायद मेरे पास ऑप्शन कहीं पर एक ऑप्शन था शायद. शायद मेरे पास ऑप्शन था रे. चाहता था कि ये शायद ये रीड हो जाए। तो कॉपी सिलेक्ट कमेंट एंड ट्रांसलेट। तो हो सकता है ये क्या कि मैं अगर सिलेक्ट ऑल करता हूँ और यहाँ पे मैं क्लिक करके आस्क एंड चैट बॉट टू, यहाँ पे बहुत सारे ऑप्शन है मेरे पास, चैट जीपीटी को पायलट जेमिना है, आई थिंक सिलेक्ट क्लाउड। ट्राई कर रहे हैं कि एंथ्रोपिक क्लाउड को पूछ के इसको समराइज करने की, देखेंगे क्या है। ठीक है, अभी क्लाउड सोच रहा है, देखेंगे। ठीक है। ओके। ओके, कैन यू प्लीज एक्सप्लेन मी। कैन यू प्लीज एक्सप्लेन मी, देखेंगे ऑप्शन क्या है। शायद सम इश्यूज विद द माइक्रोफोन दैट्स कनेक्टिंग, यहाँ पे माइक्रोफोन कनेक्ट नहीं हो रहा है। आ, वैसे ये सब तो या चैटबॉट से हमने मतलब हम चाहते थे कि ये चैटबॉट हमको प्रूफ है। एक्चुअली आई थिंक कि अगर मैं इसको यहाँ पे डालूँ, ओके से ऑप्शन है, नहीं नहीं। मैं जस्ट देख रहा हूँ कि आ, जो भी विशाखा गाइडलाइंस जो हैं उसको आपको एआई के द्वारा रीड करके दिखा सकता हूँ। सो लेट अस ट्राई। अगर हुई तो अच्छी बात है, क्योंकि मैंने तो कहीं तो देखा था कि ये होता है, अगर रीड होता है तो अच्छी बात है।
Guidelines and norms laid down by the Honorable Supreme Court in Vishaka and others versus State of Rajasthan and others, JT. Having regard to the definition of human rights in Section 2D of the Protection of Human Rights Act, 1993. Taking note of the fact that the present civil and penal laws in India do not adequately provide for specific protection of women from sexual harassment in workplaces, and that enactment of such legislation will take considerable time. It is necessary and expedient for employers and workplaces, as well as other responsible persons or institutions, to observe certain guidelines to ensure the prevention of sexual harassment of women. 1. Duty of the employer or other responsible persons in workplaces and other institutions. It shall be the duty of the employer or other responsible persons in workplaces or other institutions to prevent or deter the commission of acts of sexual harassment and to provide the procedures for the resolution, settlement, or prosecution of acts of sexual harassment by taking all steps required. 2. Definition. For this purpose, sexual harassment includes such unwelcome sexually determined behavior, whether directly or by implication, as A. Physical contact and advances. B. A demand or request for sexual favors. C. Sexually colored remarks. D. Showing pornography. E. Any other safety problem. It is discriminatory, for instance, when the woman has reasonable grounds to believe that her objection would disadvantage her in connection with her employment or work, including recruiting or promotion, or when it creates a hostile work environment. Adverse consequences might be visited if the victim does not consent to the conduct in question or raises any objection thereto. 3. Preventive steps. All employers or persons in charge of workplace, whether in public or private sector, should take appropriate steps to prevent sexual harassment. Without prejudice to the generality of this obligation, they should take the following steps. A. Express prohibition of sexual harassment as defined above at the workplace should be notified, published, and circulated in appropriate ways. B. The rules/regulations of government and public sector bodies relating to conduct and discipline should include rules/regulations prohibiting sexual harassment and provide for appropriate penalties in such rules against the offender. C. As regards private employers, steps should be taken to include the aforesaid prohibitions in the Standing Orders under the Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act 1946. D. Appropriate work conditions should be provided in respect of work, leisure, health, and hygiene to further ensure that there is no hostile environment towards women at workplaces, and no employee woman should have reasonable grounds to believe that she is disadvantaged in connection with her employment. 4. Criminal proceedings. Where such conduct amounts to a specific offense under the Indian Penal Code or under any other law, the employer shall initiate appropriate action in accordance with law by making a complaint with the appropriate authority. In particular, it should ensure that victims or witnesses are not victimized or discriminated against while dealing with complaints of sexual harassment. The victims of sexual harassment should have the option to seek transfer of the perpetrator or their own transfer. 5. Disciplinary action. Where such conduct amounts to misconduct in employment as defined by the relevant service rules, appropriate disciplinary action should be initiated by the employer in accordance with those rules. 6. Complaint mechanism. Whether or not such conduct constitutes an offense under law or a breach of the service rules, an appropriate complaint mechanism should be created in the employer's organization for redress of the complaint made by the victim. Such complaint mechanism should ensure time-bound treatment of complaints. 7. Complaints Committee. The complaint mechanism, referred to in 6 above, should be adequate to provide, where necessary, a complaints committee, a special counselor or other support service, including the maintenance of confidentiality. The complaints committee should be headed by a woman, and not less than half of its members should be women. Further, to prevent the possibility of any undue pressure or influence from senior levels, such complaints committee should involve a third party, either NGO or other body who is familiar with the issue of sexual harassment. The complaints committee must make an annual report to the government department concerned of the complaints and action taken by them. The employers and person in charge will also report on the compliance with the aforesaid guidelines, including on the reports of the complaints committee to the government department. 8. Workers' Initiative. Employees should be allowed to raise issues of sexual harassment at a workers' meeting and in other appropriate forum, and it should be affirmatively discussed in employer-employee meetings. 9. Awareness. Awareness of the rights of female employees in this regard should be created in particular by prominently notifying the guidelines and appropriate legislation when enacted on the subject in a suitable manner. 10. Third-party harassment. Where sexual harassment occurs as a result of an act or omission by any third party or outsider, the employer and person in charge will take all steps necessary and reasonable to assist the affected person in terms of support and preventive action. 11. The central/state governments are requested to consider adopting suitable measures, including legislation, to ensure that the guidelines laid down by this order are also observed by the employers in private sector. 12. These guidelines will not prejudice any rights available under the Protection of Human Rights Act, 1993. Other legal provisions include filing a criminal case under sections of the Indian Penal Code, IPC, the Indecent Representation of Women, Prohibition, Act, and/or filing a civil suit. The sections of the Indian Penal Code that can be applicable to sexual harassment, which makes it a criminal case. 1. Section 294. Whoever, to the annoyance of others, a. does any obscene act in any public place, or b. sings, recites, and utters any obscene songs, ballads, or words, in or near any public space, shall be punished with imprisonment of either description for a term that may extend to 3 months, or with fine, or with both. This provision is included in Chapter 16 entitled Of Offenses Affecting Public Health, Safety, Convenience, and Morals, and is cognizable, bailable, and triable by any magistrate. 2. Section 354. Whoever assaults or uses criminal force on any woman, intending to outrage her modesty or knowing it likely that he will thereby outrage her modesty, shall be punished with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 2 years, or with fine, or with both. 3. Section 509. Word, gesture, or act intended to insult the modesty of a woman. This is included in Chapter 22 entitled Of Criminal Intimidation, Insult, and Annoyance, and is cognizable, bailable, and triable by any magistrate. It holds, whoever, intending to insult the modesty of a woman, utters any word, makes any sound or gesture, or exhibits any object, intending that such word or sound shall be heard, or that such gesture is seen by such woman, or intrudes upon the privacy of such woman, shall be punished with simple imprisonment for a term which may extend to 1 year, or with fine, or with both. Under the Indecent Representation of Women, Prohibition, Act, 1987, if an individual harasses another with books, photographs, paintings, films, pamphlets, packages, etc. containing the indecent representation of women, they are liable for a minimum sentence of 2 years. Section 7. Offenses by companies. Further holds companies where there has been indecent representation of women, such as the display of pornography, on the premises, guilty of offenses under this Act, with a minimum sentence of 2 years. Civil case. A civil suit can be filed for damages under tort laws. That is, the basis for filing the case would be mental anguish, physical harassment, loss of income, and employment caused by the sexual harassment.
यहाँ तक हमने देख लिया कि जो विशाखा गाइडलाइंस जो है हमने पूरी की पूरी पढ़ ली है। जो पीडीएफ है, जो हम इसको फिलहाल क्लोज कर देंगे। और ये अपनी जो पेज है, यहाँ पे आपने देखा कि पहले जो लिंक है वर्क नहीं कर रही थी, सेकेंड थर्ड भी वर्क, फोर्थ जो विशाखा गाइडलाइन वो वर्क किए। अभी हम देखेंगे कि यहाँ पे 4 वीडियोस भी हैं, उसमें क्या स्थितियाँ हैं। पहले हम इसको क्लिक करते हैं। ये एक वीडियो है।
The views and opinions expressed in this learning module are those of the general employees that we have studied during our surveys and do not necessarily reflect any specific employees present here or anywhere else. This learning module is made specifically for the sensitization of employees for the issues of sexual harassment of women at workplace. It should not be utilized or counted as a compliance as per the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act, 2013, Prevention, Prohibition, Redressal. The Honorable Supreme Court defines sexual harassment as any sexually determined behavior which may be unwelcome, physical, verbal, or non-verbal conduct. According to Articles 14, 15, and 21, sexual harassment is gross violation of women's right to equality and dignity and calls for prohibition, prevention, and redressal. Today, all workplaces in India are mandated by Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act, 2013, to provide a safe and secure working environment for all women. An effective implementation of the Act will contribute to the realization of their right to gender equality, life and liberty, and equality in working conditions everywhere. You must always stand up and speak out. Welcome to Awareness on Prevention of Sexual Harassment e-learning. Upon completion of this e-learning you will be able to understand sexual harassment at workplace and types of gender discrimination, identify some common forms of sexual harassment at workplaces, prevent sexual harassment through timely response from complaints committees, act against sexual harassment through proper complaint mechanism. Before we begin with the course, here are some scenarios for you to analyze and identify if it is a case of sexual harassment at workplace. Are you ready? Let's get going then. A female trainee is demanded to stay back late night by a senior colleague to discuss a project, even when she is not a part of it, and none of the other team members are staying back. She finds his approach sexually implicit, and reports it. Would you consider this as an act of sexual harassment? That's right. A group of employees stand outside after their shift is over and sing songs with sexual connotations as and when their female colleagues pass by. Will you report this as a case of sexual harassment at workplace? That's right. A female employee is suddenly terminated from services after she reported sexual advances by her manager during a company tour. Will you report this as an instance of sexual harassment? That's right. A colleague often displays pornographic material on his mobile phone and invites you to watch it. Would you register this case as sexual harassment? That's right. A housemaid is forced to stay at her employer's house, and not allowed to meet her parents or relatives. Is this an instance of sexual harassment? That's right. Let's understand what sexual harassment at workplace indicates. It is bullying, or coercion of a sexual nature, which is usually unwelcome, or an inappropriate promise of rewards in exchange for sexual favors. In most modern legal contexts, sexual harassment is illegal. In essence, sexual harassment is a mirror reflecting male power over women. Here are some common types of gender discrimination found at most workplaces. These are discriminatory questions asked at a job interview, not hiring prospective employee, denial of promotions, illegal termination of services, unequal wages for the same work. Generally, workplace sexual harassment refers to two common classifications of inappropriate behavior, or sexual harassment at workplace. First, quid pro quo, which literally means this for that. For instance, direct or indirect promise of preferential treatment in employment, and implied or expressed threat about her present or future employment status. Second, hostile work environment, which implies to creating a hostile, intimidating or an offensive work environment, and humiliating treatment likely to affect her health or safety. Apart from quid pro quo and hostile work environment, sexual harassment at workplace can be further classified as verbal, non-verbal, and physical. Examples of verbal sexual harassment include unwelcome compliments and offensive jokes, both of sexual nature. Examples of non-verbal sexual harassment include displaying sexually suggestive pictures, calendars, or posters, and/or staring, leering, or making lewd gestures. Examples of physical sexual harassment include sexual advances such as touching, patting, or pinching, impeding or blocking movement or any physical interference with normal work or movement. Sumaitha has been working as a business executive with Growtech firms since 1 year. She has refused an offer made by a senior officer for a sexual relationship. Sumaitha has kept quiet about this experience, but thanks to the gossiping senior officer, she was acquired a reputation of being a woman of easy virtue. Now she is being subjected to repeated advances by 3 of her senior colleagues. When she turns around and protests, she is singled out and bullied. Which form of sexual harassment is Sumaitha experiencing at work? That's correct. It is a form of hostile work environment. In the above scenario, Sumaitha's refusal to the sexual advances made by her senior officer leads to her being subjected to rumors, gossip, character assassination, and unwelcome sexual advances by other officers. We have collated some scenarios based on real-life experiences of women at workplaces. These scenarios are demanding sexual favors, singing songs with sexual connotation, cracking awkward jokes, discrimination, gender-biased insult, obscene gestures, hugging, touching and molestation, displaying pornographic material, unwanted touching, and abuse of authority or power. Click on each scenario to learn more.
Will you come in my cabin and give me a good massage?
Making unsavory remarks, or singing songs, with innuendos. Cracking jokes, which cause awkwardness, or embarrassment.
You are just a woman. We need a man for this assignment.
Using gender-based insult, or sexist remarks. Making obscene gestures, or using indecent language. Unwelcome sexual overtones in any manner. Hugging and touching any part of the body, repeatedly on some pretext or the other. Displaying pornographic, or other offensive, or derogatory pictures, cartoons, pamphlets or sayings at the workplace. Physical confinement against one's will, and any other act likely to violate one's privacy, like standing too close, and trying to touch, or feel. Threatening adverse consequences, on raising objections, or resisting sexual advances. Prevention is the most effective weapon of working women against sexual harassment at workplace across all sectors. Empowered women are key to a nation's overall development, which is only possible if they have a safe and secure environment for work. Hence, complaints committees at all workplaces are now charged with the role to ensure that the right remains intact, through a fair, informed, user-friendly process of redress. Before 1997, women facing sexual harassment at workplace had to lodge complaint under Section 354, that deals with criminal assault of women to outrage women's modesty, and Section 509 of the Indian Penal Code, that deals with word, gesture or act intended to insult the modesty of women. Sexual Harassment of Women in the Workplace Act 2013 recognizes that with India's ratification of CEDAW, it is obligated to women's protection against sexual harassment and provide the right to work with dignity. The Act considers sexual harassment to be a violation of the fundamental rights of a woman to equality as guaranteed under Articles 14 and 15, and her right to live with dignity and free from violence as per Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. It has also been considered as a violation of a woman's right to practice, or to carry out any occupation, trade or business under Article 19(1)(g) of the Constitution, which includes the right to a safe environment free from harassment. This new Act also takes into its ambit the judgments made by the courts of India while trying the various cases of sexual harassment at the workplace, as defined by the Vishaka directives. The matter came before the Honourable Supreme Court via a public interest litigation, or PIL, filed by NGO named Vishaka, urging for judicial intervention to make workplaces safer for women due to the legislative inactivity in this regard. The Honourable Supreme Court observed that India was already a signatory to Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, or the CEDAW. It thus read the provisions of CEDAW, signed by India in 1980, in Articles 14, 15, 19 and 21 of the Constitution. It also laid down binding guidelines to be followed by every private and public sector employee to ensure the dignity and safety of women in her place of employment. Identify the primary objectives of the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act, 2013. That's correct. The primary objectives of the Act are protection against sexual harassment of women at workplace, prevention and redressal of complaints of sexual harassment. A safe workplace is a woman's legal right, and the responsibility of her employer. Ensuring safe working conditions for women leads to a positive impact on their participation in the workforce and increases their productivity, which in turn benefits the nation as a whole. However, even today, approximately 93% women workers who are employed in the informal sector remain unprotected by the law. Given the largely intangible nature of workplace sexual harassment, there are also a range of complexities involved in responding effectively to workplace sexual harassment complaints. With no laws or mechanisms to protect them, proactive measures are required to make their workplace safe. A workplace is defined as any place visited by the employee arising out of, or during employment, including transportation provided by the employer for undertaking such a journey. As per this definition, a workplace covers both the organized and unorganized sectors. It also includes all workplaces whether owned by Indian or foreign company having a place of work in India. Click on each tab to view employers listed under government offices, private firms, and dwelling houses. The heads, or specified officers of, workplace of central government, state government, local authority. Persons responsible for private limited companies, public limited companies, semi-government organizations, MSME, micro, small and medium enterprises, PSUs etc. Individuals benefiting from women's employment in residential complexes, clubhouses, apartments etc. A complaint committee must be constituted in every workplace so that every working woman is provided with a mechanism to redress her complaints. The Act provides for two kinds of complaints mechanisms: Internal Complaints Committee, ICC, and Local Complaints Committee, LCC. The purpose of the complaint committees is to educate and sensitize about the issue of sexual harassment, and to address complaints and conduct inquiry. All complaints committees must at least have 50% representation of women. ICC or LCC members will hold their position not exceeding 3 years from the date of their nomination or appointment. Let's take a look at the administrative structure of the ICC and LCC. An internal complaint committee of any workplace comprises of a chairman, or chairperson, who is usually a female employee working at a senior level, 2 members from amongst the employees committed to the cause of women with legal knowledge and experience in social work, and external member, who should either be from an NGO with an experience of 5 years in sexual harassment-related matters or an advocate. A local complaint committee of any workplace comprises of a chairman, or chairperson, who is usually a female employee working at a senior level, 2 members from amongst the employees committed to the cause of women with legal knowledge and experience in social work, and external member, who should either be from an NGO with an experience of 5 years in sexual harassment-related matters or an advocate. An ex officio member dealing with social welfare of women and child welfare in the district. Here is a list of guidelines that both the internal and local complaint committees should follow. These are: be thoroughly prepared. Know the Act, policy and/or relevant service rules. Gather and record all relevant information. Determine the main issues in the complaint. Prepare relevant interview questions. Conduct necessary interviews. Ensure parties are made aware of the process and their rights or responsibilities within it. Analyze information gathered. Prepare the report with findings or recommendations. Maintain confidentiality, and be impartial. Any aggravated woman may make a complaint of sexual harassment at workplace in writing. She can make the complaint within a period of 3 months from the date of incident, and in case of a series of incidents, within a period of 3 months from the date of last incident. The time limit may be extended for another 3 months if the complaint committee is satisfied with the reasons for non-filing. If any woman is unable to make a complaint in writing, then the complaint committee should provide assistance in doing so. Let's take a look at who can complain on behalf of any aggrieved woman in case of her physical incapacity, mental incapacity, death, and in case the complainant is unable to file the complaint for any other reason. 6 copies of the written complaint should be submitted to the complaint committee. The complaint should contain a description of each incident including relevant dates, timings, and locations, name of the respondents, the working relationship between the parties, and compliant content. Upon receipt of the complaint, the complaint committee should review it to ensure it has all information, that the conduct of respondent was towards complainant and form of sexual harassment at workplace. The incident occurred in workplace or at any location or any event related to work. Send complaint to respondent within 7 days of receipt or respond within 10 days. Meet up with complainant for any settlement or conciliation. Let's quickly take a look at the timelines for the following. Submission of complaint within 3 months of the last incident. Notice to the respondent within 7 days of receiving copy of the complaint. Completion of inquiry within 90 days of complaint. Submission of report by ICC or LCC to employer or district officer within 10 days of completion of inquiry. Implementation of recommendations within 60 days, and appeal within 90 days of the recommendations. It must be noted that the Act prohibits the disclosure of contents of the complaint, identity and address of complainant, respondent, and witnesses, information pertaining to conciliatory or inquiry proceedings or recommendations of the ICC or LCC, action taken by the employer or district officer. In case of breach of confidentiality, the service books direct a fine of 5,000 Indian rupees, which should be collected by the employer. Any successful preventive strategy demands the involvement of all parties with a clear intent to fight against sexual harassment at workplace. Click on each tab to learn about the responsibilities of both employers and employees. Provide safe working environment for women employees. Display conspicuously at workplace, like display of penal consequences of indulging in acts of sexual harassment. Organize workshops and awareness programs for sensitizing employees on the issues of sexual harassment. Take steps to prevent and deal with harassment in the workplace by creating complaints committees. Establish written anti-sexual harassment policies. Employees must also actively participate in the prevention of sexual harassment at workplaces. They should refrain from engaging in potential sexual harassment behaviors at work. Be aware of the various forms of sexual harassment. Discourage inappropriate behavior or conduct at workplace. Understand the organization's sexual harassment policy. Confront any harasser immediately to let him know of the misconduct. Document all incidents of sexual harassment. Provide support to a complainant throughout the complaint process.
Such a nice video. Okay. So,
Project manager?
Yes, 15 years of experience.
Do you have any?
हम देखेंगे कि अभी तक हमने देखा कि ये जो लिंक जो है, तीनों लिंक वर्क नहीं कर रहे, शेयर गाइडेंस को हमने देखा। यहाँ पे और 3 वीडियोस हैं, बड़े ही लेंथी वीडियोस है। अभी तक हमारा 1 घंटे 15 मिनट का वीडियो बन गया है ये टोटल रिकॉर्डिंग। हम देखेंगे अगला, हम पीछे नहीं हटने वाले, कोर्स कंप्लीट करके ही रहेंगे। देखिए,
of a sexual nature. Physical harassment often includes Sexual harassment is any unwelcome verbal, visual, or physical conduct of a sexual nature that is severe or pervasive and affects working conditions or creates a hostile work environment. There are generally 3 forms of sexual harassment behavior: verbal, visual, and physical. Verbal harassment includes comments about clothing, a person's body, sexual or gender-based jokes or remarks, requesting sexual favors, or repeatedly asking a person out. It also includes sexual innuendos, threats, spreading rumors about a person's personal or sexual life, or using foul and obscene language. Visual harassment can include posters, drawings or pictures, screensavers, cartoons, emails, or texts of a sexual nature. Physical harassment often includes sexual assault, impeding or blocking movement, inappropriate touching such as kissing, hugging, patting, stroking, or rubbing, sexual gesturing, or even leering or staring. Each of these forms of harassment can be broken down into 2 categories: quid pro quo and hostile work environment. Quid pro quo means this for that. This happens when an employer or supervisor uses job rewards or punishments to coerce an employee into a sexual relationship or sexual act. This includes offering the employee raises or promotions, or threatening demotions, firing, or other penalties for not complying with the request. A hostile work environment occurs when employee behavior interferes with the work performance of another, or creates an intimidating or offensive workplace. This usually happens when someone makes repeated sexual comments that make another employee feels so uncomfortable that their work performance suffers, or they decline professional opportunities because it would put them in contact with the harasser. In either type of harassment, employees only have to prove that the behavior was offensive to someone, even if it was not the intended recipient. For example, Mike tells a dirty joke to Linda. Linda loves the joke and laughs. However, Michelle happens to be walking by when the joke is told. Michelle is offended by the joke. That joke could contribute to a hostile environment claim because Michelle, who happened to be in the area, finds the dirty joke offensive. There are 2 conditions to determine if a company is liable. The first is whether the employer knew or should have known about the harassment. The second is whether the employer failed to take appropriate corrective action. Having policies in place and an active training program can shield employers from expensive lawsuits. Contact us directly for a more detailed understanding on how to prevent sexual harassment issues in your workplace.
हमने अपना सेकंड वीडियो भी देख लिया, अभी हम देखेंगे थर्ड वीडियो।
He just put his arms around me on my shoulders and then just tried to be, I mean, he was almost over me.
तो मैंने रुकने से मना कर दिया, तो मुझे ये बोला गया कि अगर आप नहीं रुकेंगी,
Then he would make sure that I leave the organization.
Did you know that sexual harassment is a criminal offense? Is punishable with imprisonment of up to 3 years.
Every organization has to follow the law on sexual harassment of women at workplace, be it big or small, and whether it has women employees or not.
An organization has to help you lodge a complaint with the complaint committee of the organization that the harasser is working, or even lodge a police complaint against the harasser if you desire.
The evaluation of sexual harassment charge depends on how a woman sees it. What matters is what you perceived and not what the harasser says he intended.
The law mandates confidentiality. This is to prevent the identification of women, harasser, witness in the public or the media.
Did you know that you need lesser proof under the law than you need to get justice under the criminal law? In this case, you need to prove only the probability, whereas under the criminal law, the proof has to be beyond reasonable doubt.
You can make a sexual harassment complaint against an organization's employee even if you don't work there. You could be anybody, a visitor, a customer, a bystander, or a job seeker, but still be able to complain.
Did you know that the law provides prompt remedy? That's because the complaint committee has to finish the inquiry within 90 days, and the 90-day period starts from when the complaint has been lodged and not from when the incident has occurred.
बिल्कुल शेयर करेंगे। ये भी बहुत अच्छी वीडियो थी।
अगर कोई अपनी बीमारियां
ये अपनी लास्ट वीडियो है, इसको क्लिक करेंगे। ये देखिए, आप देखिए कि जैसे मैंने लास्ट वीडियो को क्लिक किया, ये अपना इसको मैं ज़रा जूम करता हूँ। यहाँ पे प्रिवेंशन सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट सैम्पल 2 1 आवर लर्निंग, इसको क्लिक करते ही आप वापस से मैं क्लिक करता हूँ, इसको क्लिक करते ही आप देखेंगे कि ये वीडियो अनअवेलेबल है और दिस वीडियो इज़ अ प्राइवेट, गो टू होम करके आता है। सो ये दोनों मैं वीडियो देख नहीं पाऊँगा। तो एनीवे, तो यहाँ से हमने अपना जो मॉड्यूल 1 जो है पूरा का पूरा कंप्लीट किया है। ये एक घंटा 22 मिनट का है टोटल। हम यहाँ पे करेंगे इसको फिनिश। ये टेक्निकली होना चाहिए था फिनिश, लेकिन नहीं हो रहा है फिनिश। तो आप देख सकते हो ये इनका शायद इंटरनल एरर होगा या फिर सॉफ्टवेयर ग्लिच होंगे। यहाँ पे ये फिनिश नहीं हो रहा, और अगर ये फिनिश देखा, फिनिश नहीं हो रहा। और जब तक ये मैं कहता हूँ जब तक ये फिनिश नहीं होगा तब तक कैसे रजिस्टर होगा। शायद अभी मेरा ये मॉडल कंप्लीट है, शायद इसलिए हो रहा होगा। सो एनीवे, शुड नॉट बी द केस। अभी हम करेंगे यहाँ पे नेक्स्ट करने पे हम डायरेक्टली पहुँच गए वॉच मॉड्यूल 2 पे, यानी कि मॉड्यूल 2 में यहाँ पे हम ये प्ले करेंगे। टेक्निकली बोले तो ये जो पहला मॉड्यूल है यहाँ पे इन्होंने लिखा है कि थोड़े 37 मिनट में हो जाना चाहिए, लेकिन टेक्निकली आपने देखा कि अगर कोई बंदा स्ट्रिक्टली पूरा का पूरा पढ़ के पूरा एग्ज़ाम दे के अगर कोई कर रहा है तो एक घंटा 24 मिनट तो लगते हैं उसको। ठीक है, ये कुछ शायद सॉफ्टवेयर एरर या कुछ तो है। लेट अस वेट। हम स्किप नहीं करना चाहते हैं कुछ भी, जैसा है वैसे ही हम पूरा का पूरा कोर्स अटेंड करेंगे। कितना भी टाइम हो जाए।
Prohibition of sexual harassment of women at the workplace. In this video, we will learn about the strategies and important provisions for prevention of sexual harassment at the workplace under the POSH Act. We will also learn about the key individuals and institutions and their roles and responsibilities in the prohibitions and prevention of sexual harassment at the workplace. Sexual harassment at the workplace is the violation of women's right to a safe working environment. It discourages women's participation in work and adversely affects their mental, social, and economic development. The POSH Act has laid out rules and guidelines for setting up committees to ensure that women have a safe and respectful working environment. Let's look at a situation. Aditi works as a senior architect in a company owned by Mr. Rajan. She is part of the 5-member team led by Aryan. Aditi often receives appreciation for her creative ideas in group discussions and client meetings. Aryan has lately begun bullying Aditi by teasing her about her appearance. He changed her working timings and has also been spreading false rumors about her having a relationship with Mr. Rajan. All this has begun affecting Aditi's mental health, her work, and she has begun taking many days off. Upon being asked by a colleague, Aditi shared how she has been feeling harassed at work because of Aryan. The colleague advised that Aditi should bring this to the notice of the HR and Mr. Rajan. What should Mr. Rajan do in this situation? As an employer, what are his duties to prevent sexual harassment at the workplace? The POSH Act came into effect in 2013 after the judgment on the Vishaka and other versus State of Rajasthan. The Act provides for 2 kinds of complaint committees, Local Complaints Committee or LCC and Internal Complaints Committee or ICC. In both the committees, 50% or more members should be women. As per the POSH Act, every state and union territory government should notify a district officer. It is one of the key responsibilities of the district officer to formulate a local complaints committee in the district. The companies with fewer than 10 employees can approach the local complaints committee for redressal of sexual harassment complaints. The district officer should monitor timely submission of reports from the local complaints committee and also engage NGOs and other organizations in spreading awareness about sexual harassment at the workplace. It is mandatory for both public and private sector employers to formulate an internal complaints committee at every branch or office of the organization where the number of employees are more than 10. Failure to set up an ICC is a non-cognizable offence under the POSH Act. The POSH Act has outlined duties of employers to create awareness and prevent sexual harassment at the workplace. Key responsibilities of the employers include clearly displaying the penal consequences of sexual harassment at the workplace through posters, organizing workshops and trainings at regular intervals to sensitize employees with the provisions of the Act, empowering the Internal Complaints Committee to deal with complaints and conduct unbiased inquiry, providing support to the aggrieved woman in registering a sexual harassment complaint under Indian Penal Code if she wishes to do so, treating sexual harassment as a misconduct under the organization's services rules and initiating action for such misconduct, monitoring timely submission of reports by the Internal Complaints Committee. Apart from the employers, it is also the duty of the employees to ensure that they maintain decorum and a safe work environment. The employees must understand and follow the rules and POSH policy of the company. It is also important for the employees not to indulge in any misconduct like spreading rumors about a colleague or commenting on any colleague's personal aspects including their appearance, gender, color, or ethnicity. The employees should prohibit themselves from making any kind of sexual advances, requests, behavior, or actions. A happy workplace is formed when everyone follows a healthy code of conduct in the workplace and treat all their colleagues with respect. Before the Criminal Law Amendment Bill 2013, there was only one section under Indian Penal Code, that is Section 354, for filing criminal charges against sexual assault. It was defined as assault or use of criminal force on a woman with the intent to outrage her modesty. There was no provision of filing for criminal charges against sexual harassment. It was only after the Criminal Law Amendment Bill 2013 that Section 354 was subdivided to include 4 subsections, which were Section 354A, 354B, 354C, and 354D. This helped in defining and addressing sexual harassment as a criminal offence. Let's understand each of the subsections. Section 354A is charged if a man commits any type of sexual harassment towards a woman physically, verbally or mentally. Section 354B is charged for assault or use of criminal force on a woman with an intent to disrobe her. Section 354C is charged for voyeurism, that is, if the man watches, clicks pictures of or records a woman in a private act. For instance, secretly recording a woman changing clothes in the trial room of a shopping mall. Section 354D is charged for stalking, for instance, if the man follows a woman or attempts to contact her family or friends or uses electronic media to do the same. Apart from Section 354, a man can also be charged under IPC Section 509 for using any word, gesture or act intended to insult the modesty of a woman. It also includes invading the privacy of a woman, for instance, sharing vulgar jokes, clicking random pictures of co-workers without asking them first, making fun of someone's disability, financial status, personal life choices, etc. Now that you know about the roles and duties of the employer and the employees, what do you think should Mr. Rajan do in Aditi's situation? What are his duties to prevent sexual harassment at the workplace? Mr. Rajan should console and assure Aditi that her complaint will be taken care of. He should confront Aryan about his behavior and warn him of the consequences if he continues it. Further, the POSH Act obligates Mr. Rajan to set up an internal complaints committee in his company. He should also take steps to create awareness for preventing sexual harassment at the workplace. If Aryan continues his behavior despite being warned, Aditi can raise a formal complaint with the Internal Complaints Committee or under IPC. Remember, the POSH Act 2013 empowers every woman to feel safe and protected at her workplace.
बहुत ही अच्छी बात है, ये यहाँ पे कंप्लीट हो चुका है। कंप्लीट होने के बाद अब नेक्स्ट डायरेक्टली थिंक मॉडल 2 आया, ये ऑलरेडी यहाँ पे टिक मार्क था। अभी हम कंप्लीट करने वाले हैं थिंक मॉडल 2। स्टार्ट बटन पे
Prohibition of sexual harassment of women at the workplace. In this section, you will learn about important provisions under POSH Act 2013, the key individuals and institutions involved in redressing sexual harassment complaints, roles and responsibilities of the individuals under the POSH Act 2013. Click the Start button to begin. The POSH Act 2013 provides for 2 kinds of complaints committees: the Internal Complaints Committee, ICC, and the Local Complaints Committee, LCC. ICC is formed by the employer, whereas the LCC is formed by the district officer. Let's learn more about the provision for formation of both these complaints committees. Click each tab to learn more. As per the POSH Act 2013, it is mandatory for both public and private sector employers to constitute an Internal Complaints Committee, or ICC, in their organizations. The key responsibility of the ICC are generating awareness, preventing sexual harassment at the workplace, and conducting inquiry into complaints of sexual harassment. The Act also mentions about the constituting members of the committee. The Internal Complaint Committee's presiding officer should be a woman, employed at a senior level at the workplace. It should have at least 2 more members from the workplace that are committed to the cause of women. There should be at least 1 NGO member that is committed to the cause of women, or handles issues related to sexual harassment, and who is familiar with labor, service, civil, and criminal law. All the members are nominated by the employer for a period of up to 3 years from the date of their nomination. The second kind of complaints committee to be formed, as per the Act, is the Local Complaints Committee, LCC. The LCC is formed by the district officer. The LCC receives complaints from the unorganized sector, organizations with fewer than 10 employees, where ICC has not been set up, and in case the perpetrator is the employer himself. The LCC consists of an eminent woman social worker as the chairperson, at least 2 more members amongst women working in that block, ward, or municipality of the district, and 1 concerned officer working towards women and child development in the district. Click the next button to continue. Now, let's take a look at the roles and responsibilities of Internal Complaints Committee and Local Complaints Committee. Click each tab to learn more. The ICC and LCC ensure that women feel safe at the workplace and be given unbiased opportunities of work. They also ensure the information about the POSH policy and penal consequences of such offence are clearly displayed at the workplace, and all employees are made aware of them. It is important for ICC and LCC to organize workshops and awareness programs at regular intervals for sensitizing employees with the provisions of the POSH Act. The employer or district officer should organize orientation programs from time to time for the members of the ICC and LCC. ICC and LCC should provide assistance to the woman if she chooses to file a complaint in relation to the offences under the POSH Act. The complainant must be made aware of her rights under the Act and rules without influencing her decision. The identity of the complainant and the perpetrator must be kept confidential at all times. After filing the complaint, ICC or LCC needs to conduct an unbiased and fair inquiry into the complaint. It should also provide reasonable opportunity to the aggrieved woman and the respondent for presenting and defending their case. The ICC or LCC should submit a report to the employer or district officer about the number of complaints received, number of cases resolved, and actions taken for each case. The employers and the district officer must ensure timely submission of these reports. Click the next button to continue. Now, let's understand the role and powers of the district officer. Click each tab to learn more. The district officer ensures the formulation of local complaints committee. He or she nominates its chairperson and other members. He or she should designate nodal officers in every block or tahsil in rural areas, and every ward or municipality in urban areas. These nodal officers will receive complaints and forward them to the Local Complaints Committee, or LCC. The district officer needs to receive the report of findings and recommendations of the LCC, and take decision on the action to be taken upon these reports. Further, he or she should ensure timely submission of annual reports by the LCC. The district officer needs to prepare and submit a report to the state government by consolidating all the annual reports received from the local complaints committee. Click the next button to continue. If subjected to sexual harassment, all employees have the option to report it as per the Act. Let's take a look at the complaint mechanism to be followed for raising a sexual harassment complaint. Click each tab to learn more. The Act states that a sexual harassment complaint may be lodged by the aggrieved woman herself, or by any of her relatives, friends, co-workers, a qualified psychologist, psychiatrist, or special educator, who has the knowledge of the incident, and has a written consent of the victim. A complaint can be lodged even after the death of the complainant. The complainant has to submit 6 copies of the complaint, along with all supporting documents within a period of 3 months, from the date of incident. The ICC reserves the right to extend the time limit by another 3 months. The ICC or LCC should give all possible assistance in writing the complaint, if the complainant is unable to write it herself. Once the ICC or LCC makes a judgment or a recommendation and the aggrieved woman is not satisfied with it, she can still make an appeal against the judgment and request a re-inquiry. The process of appeal should be in accordance with the provisions under the service rules. In the absence of the service rules, she can appeal in the labor court. The appeal is to be filed within 90 days from the date of the judgment or recommendation. Click the next button to continue. The Act states that a sexual harassment complaint may be lodged by the aggrieved woman herself, or by any of her relatives, friends, co-workers, a qualified psychologist, psychiatrist, or special educator, who has the knowledge of the incident, and has a written consent of the victim. A complaint can be lodged even after the death of the complainant. The complainant has to submit 6 copies of the complaint, along with all supporting documents within a period of 3 months, from the date of incident. The ICC reserves the right to extend the time limit by another 3 months. The ICC or LCC should give all possible assistance in writing the complaint, if the complainant is unable to write it herself. Click the next button to continue. The POSH Act provides for monetary as well as other severe penalties for the employers, if they do not comply with the Act, and also for the respondent, if found guilty in the inquiry. Now, let's learn about these penalties in detail. Drag an image, and drop it in the box to know more. The ICC or LCC, as judgment, may decide for a compensation to the aggrieved woman for the mental trauma, pain, loss in career opportunity, or income and financial status. The payment could be done in lump sum, or in installments. Major penalties for the perpetrator include demotion, deduction in salary for compensation to be paid to the complainant, suspension from the post or service for a specified period, compulsory retirement, removal, or termination from service. As per the POSH Act, not forming an ICC in the organization is a non-cognizable offense. For this, the employer could be penalized with a fine of up to 50,000 rupees. Repeated offense may lead to severe penalty, such as cancellation of license or registration. Depending upon the severity of the complaint, the perpetrator could be charged under IPC Section 354, 354A, 354B, 354C, 354D, or 509. If found guilty, He could be fined with a monetary penalty or imprisonment, or both. Minor penalties for the perpetrator include censure, written apology, warning, withholding of promotion, increment, or appraisal, and reduction to a lower scale. In some cases, the perpetrator is sent for counseling and community service also. Click the next button to continue. As per the POSH Act, 2013, who should be employed as the Internal Complaint Committee's presiding officer? Drag the correct option and drop it in the box, and then click Submit.
यहाँ पर आप देख सकते हैं कि एज पर द पॉश एक्ट 2013 डैश शुड बी एम्प्लॉयड एज द इंटरनल कंप्लेंट कमिटीज प्रिजाइडिंग ऑफिसर। प्रेसिडेंट ऑफिसर जो है इंटरनल कंप्लेंट का आईसीसी का जो वुमन एम्प्लॉयड सीनियर रेवल्यूशन डिस्ट्रिक्ट ऑफिसर, ये ऑप्शन सही है। इसको निकाल के यहाँ पे डालना है।
That's great. As per the POSH Act, 2013, a woman employed at a senior level at the workplace should be appointed as the presiding officer of the Internal Complaint Committee.
Okay. So, हम आगे करेंगे continue.
What needs to designate nodal officers in every block and tahsil in rural areas and ward or municipality in urban areas to receive complaints and forward them to the LCC? Chairperson, District Officer, State Government, Presiding Officer. Select the correct option and click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
अच्छा, ये है एलसीसी के बारे में, जो लोकल कंप्लेंट कमेटी जो है, इसको द डैश नीड्स टू डेजिग्नेट नोडल ऑफिसर। ये कौन डेजिग्नेट करता है? ये करता है स्टेट गवर्नमेंट के डिस्ट्रिक्ट ऑफिसर। ठीक है।
That's great. The district officer needs to designate nodal officers in every block and tahsil in rural areas and ward or municipality in urban areas to receive complaints and forward them to the LCC.
करेंगे कंटिन्यू।
What are the minor penalties for sexual harassment that a perpetrator can be penalized with? Removal from service, censure, withholding of promotion, withholding increments of pay, compulsory retirement. Select 3 correct options and click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
ठीक है। द क्वेश्चन है व्हाट आर द माइनर पेनल्टीज फॉर सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट दैट अ परपेट्रेटर कैन बी पेनलाइज्ड विथ। यहाँ पे पहले ऑप्शन है रिमूवल फ्रॉम द ऑफिस, सेंशर, विथहोल्डिंग प्रमोशन, विथहोल्डिंग इंक्रीमेंट्स ऑफ पे, यानी कम। यहाँ पे 4 ऑप्शन शायद ये है। एक है कि विथहोल्डिंग प्रमोशन हो सकता है, विथ इंक्रीमेंट्स पे हो सकता है, और सेंशर हो सकता है। रिमूवल सर्विस नहीं है और कंपल्सरी रिटायरमेंट नहीं है शायद। सबमिट।
That's great. Depending upon the severity of the complaint, the ICC may decide to penalize the perpetrator with minor penalties, such as censure, warning, withholding of promotion, and withholding increments of pay.
चलिए, अभी है अपना पाइवोटल पॉइंट। हमको पता है कि ये जो मॉड्यूल 2 में जो थिंक मॉड्यूल में अगर मैं इसको फिनिश करता हूँ तो क्या होना चाहिए, कोर्स मतलब मॉड्यूल फिनिश होके आगे जाना चाहिए। देखेंगे क्या होता है। मैंने क्लिक किया और मैं वापस क्लिक कर रहा हूँ। क्लिक 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 क्लिक। अच्छा, क्लिक करके 1 2 3 सेकंड रुक जाएगा। अगर कोई मतलब क्लिक होने के बाद कुछ होता हो, नहीं होता है। वापस से मैंने क्लिक किया, नहीं हो रहा है, नहीं हो रहा है। अब मैं वेट करता हूँ, 10 सेकंड वेट करता हूँ। क्लिक होने के बाद प्रॉपर मैं 10 सेकंड क्लिक करके पकड़ता हूँ। रुको, देखता हूँ। 1 2 3 4 5, फिर छोड़ दिया। कुछ नहीं हो रहा है। यूजुअली सॉफ्टवेयर डोंट डू लाइक दैट। मतलब मैं ट्राई कर रहा हूँ हर एक वो चीज़ करने के लिए ताकि ये फिनिश हो। लेकिन ये रिएक्ट नहीं कर रहा है। तो आप अभी आप देखेंगे, अगर ये रिएक्ट नहीं कर रहा है तो हम क्या कर रहे थे, यूजुअली हम कर रहे थे यहाँ पे हम जाके नेक्स्ट कर रहे थे। अभी नेक्स्ट करने के बाद यूजुअली यहाँ पे आना चाहिए टिक, नहीं आया, इसका मतलब कोर्स कंप्लीट नहीं हुआ। ठीक है, हम फिर भी हम अपना जो होप है वो नहीं खोएंगे, पूरा का पूरा कोर्स कर लेंगे कंप्लीट, भले ही टिक ना आए। ठीक है। सो अगला जो है वो है प्ले, स्कॉर्म का प्ले डू मॉड्यूल है, वो देखेंगे। ठीक है, यहाँ पे
Here is an opportunity to practice and test your knowledge on the learned concepts from this lesson. Select a game mode. Apply and practice your newly acquired knowledge on the prohibition of sexual harassment of women at the workplace. Click the Start button to begin this activity. Sunanda is depressed and has not been going to office for several days. Her husband is worried about her. He decides to speak to Sunanda about it, and comes to know that Prashant, Sunanda's colleague, had sexually harassed her in the office. Sunanda further stated that she was too scared to go to office or file a complaint against him. Click Next to move to the question. Help Sunanda's husband identify ways in which he can help Sunanda in this situation. He could go to Sunanda's office and register a complaint against Prashant. He could ask Sunanda to resign from her job and search for another one. He could force Sunanda to go to work and pretend as if nothing has happened. He could lodge an FIR against Prashant. Select two correct options and click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
जहाँ तक कि मेरे को लगता है कि सुनंदा के हस्बैंड को दो चीज़ें करनी चाहिए। एक है कि वो ऑफिस में जाके कंप्लेंट करे, और दूसरी चीज़ है वो FIR लॉन्च कर सकता है।
That's great. You have selected the correct options. Under Section 9 of the POSH Act, 2013, and Rule 6 of the POSH Rules, 2013, a complaint can be lodged by the aggrieved woman or any of her relatives, or friends, or co-workers, or an officer of the National Commission for Women, or State Commission for Women, or a qualified psychologist or psychiatrist, who has the knowledge of the incident, with written consent of the aggrieved woman. A complaint can be filed even after the death of the aggrieved woman, with the written consent of her legal heir. This provision empowers all concerned and well-wishers to lodge complaint against an act of sexual harassment, where they feel the harassed person is too timid or scared to come forward.
चलिए कंटिन्यू करते हैं।
Mr. Khanna's IT company has formed an internal complaints committee, ICC, as per the POSH Act, 2013. Mr. Khanna introduced the ICC team to his company's employees, to acquaint them with the members of the ICC. Renu, along with other female staff members, were shocked to notice that the ICC consisted of only men, and no women. Click Next to move to the question. As per the POSH Act, 2013, what are the guidelines to be followed while forming the Internal Complaints Committee? More than half of the members in ICC should be women. The presiding officer should be a woman employed at a senior level. At least one NGO member should be committed to the cause of women and issues related to sexual harassment. The presiding officer should be a man employed at a senior level. Select 3 correct options and click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
So, as per the POSH Act 2013, what are the guidelines to be followed while forming Indian Complaints Committee? शायद सीनियर वुमन ही होनी चाहिए. More than half of the members of ICC should be 3 correct. ये सही है. President officer should be woman employed at a senior level. ये भी सही है. At least one NGO member should be committed. ये भी सही है. Presiding officer should be man employed. नहीं. ये तीनों सही है.
That's great. You have selected the correct options. As per Section 4 of the POSH Act, 2013, the Internal Complaints Committee should have more than half of the members as women. The presiding officer has to be a woman, employed at a senior level at the workplace. The committee should have at least 2 other members from the organization, who are committed to the cause of women, who may have legal knowledge or experience in social work. It should also have 1 member from a non-governmental organization or association that are committed to the cause of women and prevention of sexual harassment. Further, the members should be nominated by the employer for a period of up to 3 years from the date of their nomination. Neha has filed a sexual harassment complaint with the Internal Complaints Committee, ICC, against Amir, her senior manager. On receiving the complaint, the ICC conducts an inquiry and finds Amir guilty. Click Next to move to the question. What actions can Internal Complaints Committee take against Amir, the perpetrator? Disciplinary action including written apology, warning, or reprimand. Salary deduction as compensation for the aggrieved woman. Withholding appraisal and increment. Delay his salary by 15 days every month for the next 6 months. Select 3 correct options and click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
अच्छा, तो यहाँ पे है what actions can be internal committee can take against Amir, the perpetrator. सबसे पहले है disciplinary action including written apology, ये warning, डिपार्टमेंट सब मांग सकते हैं. सैलरी रिडक्शन, नेट कॉम्पनसेशन एग्रीवेट, ये भी कर सकते हैं. ये भी कर सकते हैं. सैलरी डिले, सैलरी ये नहीं चाहिए शायद, ये तो नहीं है बस.
That's great. You have selected the correct options. The actions taken against the perpetrator by the Internal Complaints Committee include withholding appraisal and increments, disciplinary actions like written apology, reprimand, and warning. Salary deduction as compensation for the complainant. In some cases, the perpetrator could be sent for counseling or community service also. Also remember that, where there are service rules, ICC may recommend these actions to the employer of the perpetrator. It is important that the committee conducts a fair and unbiased inquiry and take appropriate action against the accused. The ICC needs to provide a copy of the report to the concerned parties, that is, to the complainant and the respondent. Mr. J is a district officer. As per the reports submitted by the Local Complaints Committee, LCC, he notices that there has been a substantial rise in the sexual harassment cases in his jurisdiction. Click Next to move to the question. As a district officer, what are the responsibilities of J to prevent sexual harassment in his jurisdiction? Engage NGOs for creation of awareness on sexual harassment at the workplace. Ensure timely submission of reports from the Local Complaint Committee. Arrest all accused and offenders. Prepare and submit a consolidated annual report to the state government. Select 3 correct options, and then click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
ओके, सो एज डिस्ट्रिक्ट ऑफिसर ये एंगेज कर सकते हैं एनजीओस को, टाइमली सबमिशन मांग सकते हैं कि क्या है, एंड प्रिपेयर सबमिट कंसल्टेड रिपोर्ट गवर्नमेंट को भी भेज सकते हैं.
That's great. You have selected the correct options. One of the key responsibilities of the district officer are to take necessary steps to engage NGOs and other such organizations in creating awareness about sexual harassment and its prevention. He should monitor the timely submission of reports submitted by the Local Complaint Committee. It is important for him to ensure that the complaint committees are well trained to address sexual harassment complaints. He is required to create and submit an annual report to the respective state or UT government.
ओके, सो हम करेंगे कंटिन्यू.
Yuvika is a software engineer who works in the night shift. Webha usually comes to her desk and cracks suggestive jokes at her. He even passes lewd remarks in the passing. This makes Yuvika very uncomfortable. She even noticed that he follows her home, and this stalking behavior makes her extremely nervous and afraid. As per the Indian Penal Code provisions, under which section can Webha be charged for sexually harassing Yuvika? Drag and drop the correct option into the box, and click Submit.
अच्छा, तो ये 354A में आता है.
That's great. You have selected the correct option. Webha can be booked under Section 354, that is, assault or criminal force to a woman with the intent to outrage her modesty. Under the Indian Penal Code, Section 354 is divided into 4 subsections. Section 354A is charged if a man commits any type of sexual harassment, for instance, physical contact, request for sexual favors, or passing sexual remarks. Section 354B is charged for assault or use of criminal force on a woman with an intent to disrobe her. Section 354C is charged for voyeurism, that is a man watching or capturing a woman in a private act. Section 354D is charged if a man follows a woman or attempts to contact her family or friends, or uses electronic media to do the same. Now try applying your skills in another situation.
Okay.
Test your newly acquired knowledge on the prohibition of sexual harassment of women at the workplace. Click the Start button to begin this activity. Rekha is an assistant in an organization. Her manager, Amit, has tried to touch her inappropriately on 2 different occasions. She is now very scared of him, and decides to report the matter to the HR manager, Rohini. Rohini listened to everything very patiently, and said that, as the company has fewer than 10 employees, they do not have a proper mechanism in place to handle such complaints. Click Next to move to the question. Help Rohini suggest different ways in which Rekha can handle this situation effectively. Confront the perpetrator, tell him that his behavior is unwelcome, and ask him to not repeat it again. Use the Sexual Harassment electronic box, She box, to register a complaint. Register her complaint with the local complaint committee, LCC, in her district. Contact the local police station, and lodge an FIR against the perpetrator. Resign from this company and look for a new job. Select 4 correct options and then click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
अच्छा, सो एक तो कंफर्म कर सकती है, बता सकती है कि ऐसा मत करो, या फिर शी बॉक्स यूज़ कर सकती है, या फिर लोकल कंप्लेंट कमेटी को अप्रोच कर सकती है, या फिर पुलिस स्टेशन में जाके FIR लॉन्च कर सकती है. सबमिट.
Sujata was transferred to a new department a few months ago. Her new teammate, Rohan, keeps making passes at her, and pesters her to go out and have dinner with him. Sujata has declined his request many times, but he has not stopped pestering her. Troubled by his behavior, Sujata approached the Human Resources Department of the company to seek advice. Click Next to move to the question. What are the responsibilities of the employer to prevent sexual harassment at the workplace and help their employees to address such situations? Establishing an internal complaints committee, ICC, at the workplace. Implementing a well-drafted POSH policy at the office. Sensitizing the employees regarding the issue of sexual harassment at workplace through trainings, seminars or webinars, and posters about POSH. Displaying the consequences of sexual harassment at a clearly visible place through posters and mailers. Transferring the complainant to another department or branch. Select 4 correct options and then click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
Okay, so establishing internal committee and implementing well drafted POSH policy, sensitizing and displaying, submit.
Sneha likes Rohan, her manager. She tries to get close to him whenever possible. However, Rohan doesn't like it and tries to ignore her. Sneha feels rejected, and as revenge, she decides to file a sexual harassment complaint against Rohan. What do you think will happen if Sneha files a false sexual harassment complaint against Rohan, and upon inquiry, it is proven that Sneha accused him falsely? Rohan will be suspended and will be asked to compensate Sneha. Sneha will be warned and penalized for making a false complaint. Rohan will be warned and will be transferred to another department. Sneha will be asked to leave the job. Select the correct option and then click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
शायद आप देख सकते हो कि ये अपोजिट सिचुएशन है। यहाँ पे जो बॉय जो है, जो लड़का जो है, वो हैरेसमेंट के यहाँ पे शायद कर सकते हैं कि रोहन विल बी सस्पेंडेड। नहीं, रोहन तो सस्पेंड नहीं क्यों होगा, स्नेहा विल बी वार्नड। ये थ्री करेक्ट ऑप्शन। सो स्नेहा विल बी वार्नड, रोहन विल बी वार्नड ना, asked no no, click the correct option. So Sneha will be warned, correct.
Mr. Rao owns a manufacturing company that has branches in 3 cities. He has constituted an internal complaint committee, ICC, only at the head office and not at the other branches or offices. As per the POSH Act, what is the penalty for an employer for not formulating an internal complaint committee, ICC, at every branch or office of an organization? Drag and drop the correct option into the box, and click Submit. Match the criminal charges given in column A with the correct references given in column B. Drag and drop the statements in column B to match them to the statements in column A, then click Submit.
ये भी बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग है। यहाँ पे बोल रहे हैं सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट, तो आप देख सकते हो कि क्या क्या इसमें आता है। इसमें है कि फॉलोइंग, ये सिक्योरिटी फॉलोइंग जो है, ट्राइंग टू कॉन्टेक्ट फैमिली, ये आता है स्टॉकिंग में। सो आप इसको उठा के स्टॉकिंग पे डाल दीजिए। फिर वॉयरिज्म जो है, वो जो है सीक्रेटली रिकॉर्डिंग वगैरह है, ये आता है यहाँ पे। डिमांडिंग सेक्सुअल फेवर जो है, ये आता है। फोर्सिंग टू बी नेकेड, ये आता है। हाँ, यहाँ पे बस 3 बाकी है ना। तो डिमांडिंग सेक्सुअल फेवर से सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट आता है, और सिंगिंग वल्गर जोक्स वगैरह, इंसल्टिंग वर्ड्स आता है।
Congratulations! You have successfully completed this lesson. Click the Finish button to complete the lesson.
ये बता तो दिया 80% करके यहाँ पे, लेकिन आप देख सकते हो कि ये अभी भी 50% पे है कि, लेकिन हम कुछ नहीं हो रहा। देखो, क्लिक द फिनिश बटन टू कंप्लीट द फिनिश, नहीं हो रहा है फिनिश। ठीक है, ठीक है, अभी जैसे करते करते हैं वैसे ही करते हैं। नेक्स्ट को बाकी एक्सप्लोर मॉडल को ऑन करके। दोस्तों लगभग 2 घंटे हो चुके हैं। 2 घंटे हमने लगाए कोर्स को कंप्लीट करने में। आप हमारा वीडियो लगातार देख रहे हैं। 2 घंटे का वीडियो है, यहाँ पे हम इसको प्ले कर रहे हैं।
Prohibition of sexual harassment of women at the workplace. In this section, you will get an opportunity to explore additional resources to expand your knowledge on the topic. Click the Start button to begin. Click on each resource link to discover more.
दोस्तों ये सिमिलर है जैसे कि हमने लास्ट में देखा था। यहाँ पे सबसे पहले सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट एट वर्क प्लेस का एक वेब लिंक है, क्लिक करके देखेंगे। ये पूरा का एक एक लीफलेट लीगल डॉक्यूमेंट रिव्यू है। यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हो कि ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम के बारे में, व्हाट इज लोकल कंप्लेंट्स कमेटी, if there is no resident workplace, jurisdiction is decided headed to this platform. Who is responsible for creating LCC in every district? District may have many villages, tehsils, municipalities. How many members does an LCC have? ये सारे क्वेश्चंस की आंसर्स आप यहाँ पे पा सकते हो। क्वेश्चन 8 है, इज देयर एनी remuneration to be provided to members? Rules of conduct that person allows to 50 per day holding the proceeding and the state committee. सो इसका मतलब यहाँ पे बहुत से क्वेश्चंस जो है उसका आंसर है। यहाँ पे क्वेश्चन जो स्पेसिफिकली इंपॉर्टेंट है कि इज देयर एनी रेम्यूनरेशन। हाँ, तो रेम्यूनरेशन है। द रूल्स एंटाइटल्स चेयरपर्सन ऑफ द एलसीसी एन अलाउंस ऑफ 250 पर डे होल्डिंग द प्रोसीडिंग ऑफ द स्टेट कमिटी। Members of nominated NGOs other than those nominated under the section 7A, B or D, it will be paid at least 200 per day. Proceeding will be reimbursed at the cost incurred in traveling by train, air condition or air condition by और हाँ, तो यहाँ पे है पेमेंट वगैरह। ट्रेवलिंग बाई ट्रेन और टिकट का भी इनकर्ड जो कॉस्ट है वो भी टिकट ये भी शायद मिलता है। रिमूव्ड बिफोर देयर ट्रेन ईयर एंड्स। हाँ, तो यहाँ पे है पूछ रहे हैं कि ट्रेन एंड के पहले अगर क्या हम निकाल सकते हैं। तो एक्ट मेक्स प्रोविजंस फॉर द रिमूवल ऑफ द मेंबर्स ऑफ एलसीसी इन सच सिचुएशन स्टिपुलेट्स दैट इफ द मेंबर ऑफ द एलसीसी इंक्लूडिंग द चेयरपर्सन कंडक्ट क्वालिफाइज अंडर following situations such as a member should be removed if such member publishes or makes known the contents of the complaint or inquiry proceeding before the देखता हूँ अगर मैं इसको read कर पाऊंगा तो। summarize this for me क्लाउड, लेकिन क्लाउड रीड नहीं कर पाता है। कैन यू हियर मी? शायद नहीं। एनीवे हमने ये डॉक्यूमेंट पूरा पढ़ लिया है तो हम इसको करेंगे नहीं, खुला ही रहेंगे। नेक्स्ट करेंगे ये अपनी सेकंड डॉक्यूमेंट की ओर बढ़ते हुए आईपीसी सेक्शन 354। यहाँ पे सेक्शन 354 के बारे में असॉल्ट क्रिमिनल फोर्स टू वुमन विद इंटेंट ऑफ आउटरेज ऑफ मॉडेस्टी, 1 to 5 years fine, cognizable offense, non-bailable, any magistrate. 354A, sexual harassment, punishable, punishment for sexual harassment, classification U, schedule 1 CRPC, bailable है लेकिन cognizable भी है। IPC section 354B, assault or use of criminal force to woman with intent to disrobe. And when assault criminal force on a woman abets such an act with an intention of disrobing, compelling her to be naked, shall be punished with imprisonment either to detention for term 3 से 7 साल तक सजा हो सकती है। और नॉन बेलेबल ऑफेंस भी है, ये कॉग्निजेबल है। 354C जो है, जो वोयरिज्म के बारे में बताते हैं, मैंने है who watches or captures the image of woman engaging in private act in circumstances where she would usually have the expectations of not being observed either by the perpetrator or by any other person at the behest of the perpetrator. Disseminate such image shall be punished for first conviction with imprisonment of either description for terms not less than 1 year but maybe extend to 3 years and shall be liable to fine. ठीक है, ठीक है, ठीक है। हाँ, तो ये भी है शायद 1 से 3 साल तक, 3 से 7 साल अगर सेकेंड बार भी अगर कर रहे हो तो। कंपोजिशन 320 CRPC 354D स्टॉकिंग में आता है। मैन हो मैन, शायद मैं इसके बारे में मैं एक डिटेल वीडियो अगले अपने इसमें बनाऊंगा, क्योंकि ये रूल्स जो है इसको डिटेलली हम पढ़ेंगे, डिटेल में उसको पढ़ाएंगे अपने AI को यूज़ करके। अभी भी शायद कर सकते हैं। हाँ, तो वीडियो 2 घंटे 15 मिनट की तो ऑलरेडी हो चुकी है। सो अगर मैं इसको पढ़ाऊँगा तो अगले वीडियो में शायद इसको डेडिकेटली हम पढ़ाने की कोशिश करेंगे, ठीक है। सो हम बढ़ते हैं अपने अगले इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ द ICC के बारे में क्लिक करके देखते हैं। Constitution of ICC under POSH Act. The Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013, POSH Act, was enacted as a comprehensive legislation to provide safe, secure, enabling an environment free from to every woman. इसी बारे में इंट्रोडक्शन है इसका। ये क्या है, ये आता है क्या, ऐसा क्या है? हाँ, सो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ ICC या प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर कौन हो सकता है, एक्सटर्नल मेंबर कौन हो सकता है, एम्प्लॉई मेंबर्स कैसे हैं, डिस्क्वालिफिकेशन मेंबर कैसे होता है, इम्प्रॉपरली कॉन्स्टिट्यूटेड ICC, यार नहीं चाहिए यार, नहीं करना है। कंक्लूजन भी है, ये अश्नी रॉय करके है, इन्होंने लिखा है, बहुत ही अच्छी तरीके से लिखा होगा। लेकिन हम आगे बढ़ते हैं अपने लास्ट वाले लिंक पे, ऑब्लिगेशंस ऑफ एम्प्लॉयज। Work 360 solutions against sexual harassment. Who is an employer under the act? What are the duties of an employer? उसके बाद में why should employees comply with the law? So ये सब बातें यहाँ पे मैं भी मेंशन की हुई है। सो हम आगे बढ़ते हैं। शायद ये जो चारों लिंक्स जो हैं इसको डिटेल में हम पढ़ेंगे। देखा है, हम आगे बढ़ते हैं। यहाँ पे हैं 4 वीडियोस। फर्स्ट वाली वीडियो तो आप देख सकते हो, इट इज़ नॉट अवेलेबल। सेकेंड वाली वीडियो देखेंगे।
Effects of sexual harassment in the workplace. Sexual harassment is not just a little locker room talk, a compliment, innocent flirting, or an invitation to share a cup of coffee. Workplace harassment is a discriminatory pattern of behavior that creates a hostile work environment based on a protected class. It may involve verbal abuse and abuse of power, sexual quid pro quo, and assault, such as unwanted groping. Harassment in the workplace has negative effects on all workers, including decreased performance, low morale, and increased turnover. What is sexual harassment? Harassment is a form of employment discrimination that violates several federal and state laws. Sexual harassment is persistent, unwanted sexual advances, verbal abuse, and/or demands for sexual favors. Behavior becomes illegal when enduring the harassment is a condition of continued employment and creates an environment that is hostile or intimidating. If an employer has more than a handful of employees, it's likely harassment will be a problem. There were over 12,860 charges filed with the EEOC alleging sex-based harassment in 2016. 1 in 3 women face harassment in the workplace, yet 70% of women say they have never reported it. Effects of sexual harassment. Sexual harassment can affect everyone. because it creates an environment that makes it harder for employees to succeed. The possible effects of sexual harassment in the workplace include emotional and physical issues. Victims of sexual harassment often suffer emotional and psychological harm, including stress, depression, and anxiety. They often experience decreased confidence and self-esteem. Physical health problems may arise, such as loss of sleep and appetite, weight fluctuations, nausea, and headaches. Professional and financial problems. Sexual harassment can also wreak havoc on a victim's job performance and career trajectory. Fear and decreased confidence can cause some people to withdraw from the workplace and disengage from coworkers. They are more likely to be tardy, absent, distracted, and neglect duties. If victims of sexual harassment report the harassment, they may suffer advancement setbacks, such as being passed over for promotions, being left out of key meetings, retaliation, and being labeled as a troublemaker. Financial problems like lost wages and unpaid leave are also possible. Decreased company productivity. Sexual harassment is also damaging to an organization. When a workplace is infected with discrimination and harassment, everyone suffers. The hostility created by harassment causes absenteeism, low morale, gossip, animosity, stress, and anxiety among staff. Low productivity is more common in environments with high rates of sexual harassment. Victims and witnesses of sexual harassment are more likely to quit, leading to high employee turnover and related hiring and training cost increases. A toxic environment will also make recruiting top talent more difficult. Lawsuit and reputation. A company's failure to adequately prevent and handle sexual harassment can result in expensive lawsuits. In the past decade, we have seen some eye-popping jury awards in sexual harassment cases. A jury awarded plaintiffs $17.4 million in a case filed by the EEOC involving rape and sexual harassment by 3 male supervisors at a Florida packing plant. And $18 million was awarded in the case against the New York Global Group CEO for retaliation against his former employee after she refused his advances. A highly publicized case of sexual harassment can also damage a company's reputation, resulting in lost business. Anti-harassment policy and training. Employers must institute anti-harassment programs that contribute to a welcoming culture where everyone feels they are valuable team members and also attract talented job applicants. A company harassment policy should define harassment and give examples, state that harassment is not tolerated, explain the harassment reporting system with the designated HR person for reporting claims, communicate the disciplinary consequences of harassment, outline the investigation and remediation process, state that retaliation against employees reporting harassment is prohibited. Employers must hold employees and themselves to high standards. Everyone deserves a workplace free from harmful harassment, and all employees should be expected to behave like professional adults while on the job. Not only could workplace harassment lead to expensive lawsuits, it creates a toxic culture that cripples team cohesion and harms productivity. Learn how to avoid these problems and more when you enroll with 360training.com today.
ओके हम देखेंगे इसको अभी।
Hello and welcome to training on workplace harassment. All of us.
नहीं, अगला वीडियो देखेंगे। ये अपना हाँ, तो हमने देखा कि सेकेंड वीडियो देखा, ठीक है। फर्स्ट तो ओपन नहीं हो रहा था, थर्ड देखेंगे।
According to a global review by United Nations
कि अपना ये वाला वीडियो भी हो गया। अभी बचा है बस अपना आई थिंक लास्ट वीडियो। हाँ ओके, शायद ये वाला वीडियो भी नॉट अवेलेबल एनी मोर। सो 1 2 3 4 ये वीडियो हो चुका है। अभी हम करेंगे फिनिश। अभी हम करेंगे फिनिश 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 फिनिश। ये भी प्रॉब्लम ही है, ये मॉड्यूल भी ख़त्म नहीं हो रहा है। फिनिश नहीं हो रहा है, फिनिश नहीं हो रहा। आपने देखा कि ये पूरे सब कुछ हमने देखा हुआ है, यहाँ पे कर सकते हैं। तो बस नेक्स्ट नेक्स्ट करने पे हम अगले मॉड्यूल पे आते हैं, जो कि है 6 मिनट वाला मॉड्यूल। एंड आप देख सकते हो कि ये मॉड्यूल हमने कंप्लीट किया है, फिर भी क्या है कि टिक मार्क नहीं आ रहा है। एनीवे हम कंप्लीट करेंगे पूरा का पूरा मॉड्यूल, ताकि हम ये वीडियो हम शेयर कर सके कंसर्न अथॉरिटीज़ के साथ, ताकि वो भी देख सके कि प्रॉब्लम है, कैसा प्रॉब्लम है, क्या है, ढूंढो, करो सॉल्व।
Redressal of sexual harassment of women at the workplace. In this video, we will learn about the complaint mechanism and registration process under the POSH Act 2013. We will also learn about the inquiry process and the consequences under the POSH Act 2013. Sexual harassment can adversely affect an employee's mental health and work. It is the responsibility of the employer to ensure that there is a proper sexual harassment redressal mechanism in their organization. The POSH Act provides for setting up of an internal complaints committee in the organization for the redressal of sexual harassment complaints. Any employee facing sexual harassment can approach the committee to register a complaint and seek redressal. Apart from the ICC, an employee can register sexual harassment complaint with the local police station or using the online complaint system SheBox. In this lesson, we will be discussing about these mechanisms in detail. Let's begin by looking at a situation. Rashmi is working as a senior consultant in an organization for 5 years. Ms. Sujata is her reporting manager. For the past few days, Sujata has been noticing that Rashmi is behaving differently. She's not focused on her work, appears upset every day, and is taking frequent leaves. Sujata calls Rashmi to her office and asks her if everything is fine. At first, Rashmi hesitates, but upon being asked again, she starts crying. Rashmi tells Sujata about Deepak, her colleague, who has tried to sexually assault her when she was working late at night. Rashmi didn't want to tell this to anyone, fearing shame. Sujata consoled her and told her about the POSH Act. She told her that they also have an internal complaints committee or ICC where she can register a complaint against Deepak. What process should Rashmi follow in order to file a complaint against Deepak? What are the rules and responsibilities of the ICC? A woman facing sexual harassment can register a complaint with the ICC. The complaint mechanism followed by the ICC involves 6 stages, which are further divided into 15 steps. The first stage is when ICC receives the complaint. The steps included in this stage are receiving and acknowledging the complaint, meeting and talking to the aggrieved women, and exploring options of formal or informal redressal. The second stage is carefully planning for the next stage, that is, preparing the file, planning and making assumptions like granting leave to the aggrieved women, etc. The third stage is planning interviews or hearings with the accused, aggrieved, and the witnesses, and gathering relevant information. The fourth stage is reasoning. In this stage, the ICC will review the information received, create a timeline of the events occurred, and assess the statements made by interviewees. The fifth stage is arriving at a conclusion and making appropriate recommendations. The sixth and the last stage in the complaint mechanism is writing the inquiry report. Now, let's take a look at other roles and responsibilities of the Internal Complaint Committee. The ICC serves two purposes. It conducts an inquiry on the sexual harassment cases at the workplace. It also generates awareness and takes preventive measures to ensure that the work environment is safe and conducive to the participation of women employees. The ICC has to submit an annual report to the employer, which includes cases filed or resolved every calendar year. The POSH Act also suggests penalties for the accused if found guilty in the inquiry process. Depending on the severity of the case, he will be charged with major or minor penalties. Major penalties include demotion, deduction in salary, compulsory retirement, and removal or suspension from service. The respondent has to pay the compensation amount either in lump sum or in installments. Minor penalties include written apology, censure, warning, withholding of promotion, increment or appraisal, reduction to a lower pay scale for up to 3 years, and recommendation for counseling or community services. If the aggrieved woman is not satisfied with the decision made by ICC, she can make an appeal against it as per the service rules. In the absence of service rules, she can appeal against ICC's decision in the Labour Court. The appeal should be filed within 90 days from the date of the decision or recommendation made by the ICC. Sexual harassment can lead to serious mental and health issues to the affected person. It can affect her work and financial conditions also. Some of the consequences of sexual harassment are mental and physical suffering, loss in income and career opportunity, unnecessary medical expenses, low confidence and faith, adverse effect on work productivity. It is the responsibility of the HR department to ensure that the employees have the confidence to raise an issue related to sexual harassment and they feel safe in the organization. Now that you know about the process of redressal of sexual harassment complaint under the POSH Act, what do you think should Rashmi do in this situation? Rashmi shouldn't have felt ashamed or taken days off from work, as it wasn't her fault in the first place. Rashmi should have told Deepak that his activities were unwelcome and unpleasant and he should stop. Rashmi should have discussed the incident with her family, friends, colleagues or the HR person to seek their support. The POSH Act 2013 has ensured that all the working women are safe and protected at their workplace and the perpetrators are penalized and punished.
फैंटास्टिक। ये अपना कंप्लीट हो चुका है। जो ऑटोमेटिकली थिंक मॉड्यूल ऑन हुआ, ये तो टिक मार्क आ रहा है। ओके, अगले स्कोर मोड की ओर बढ़ते हुए
Redressal of sexual harassment of women at the workplace. In this section, you will learn about complaint mechanism as per the POSH Act, the inquiry process to be followed by the ICC and LCC, the online sexual harassment complaint management system, SHE-box. Click the Start button to begin.
बैकग्राउंड में क्लिक हो रहा होगा, लेकिन
If you are a member of the Internal Complaints Committee and you receive a sexual harassment complaint, you should follow a 6-stage process for addressing that complaint. We have seen the overview of this process in the watch video. Now let's understand each of the 6 stages in detail. Click each tab to learn more. Start the process by receiving the complaint from the woman facing sexual harassment. There are 5 steps that need to be followed after the receipt of the complaint. Step 1. Upon receipt, the complaint should be reviewed for clarity and need of additional information from the complainant. Step 2. Discuss the formal and informal resolution options with the complainant. Step 3. For the informal resolution, the committee should explore suitable ways of conciliation, such as counseling, educating, or warning the respondent to promptly stop the unwelcome behavior. Step 4. If the complainant opts for formal redressal, the committee should plan and initiate the inquiry process. Step 5. Inform the respondent about the complaint within 7 days of receiving the complaint. He can respond to the complaint, in writing, in 10 days thereafter. Now the committee has to create a plan for initiating the inquiry. This is a 2-step process. Step 6 is creating documentation, reviewing and understanding law and policy, and making a list of dates, events, and relevant witnesses. Step 7, deciding upon the request made by the complainant for her transfer, the transfer of the respondent, or for taking leave from work, up to 3 months, during the inquiry process. Once the planning is done, it's time to meet both parties face to face. Step 8. Based on the results of the previous steps, the committee should decide which issues need to be pursued for questioning during the interviews. Step 9. The committee should review and access the collected information with respect to the complaint. This will help determine whether there is enough information to make a finding on the complaint. Once the information and review are complete, the committee will make its findings. This is a 3-step process. Step 10. Determine whether or not the behavior or conduct falls within the definition of sexual harassment, as defined in the Act, or rules, policy, service rules or law. Step 11. Create a timeline to help establish the sequence of events related to the complaint. Step 12. Compare similarities and differences within each of the statements made by the interviewees. After making all the above considerations, the committee has to arrive at a conclusion and record their findings. Step 13. The committee must arrive at a finding of whether the complaint is true, incorrect, or false. Step 14. Based on its findings, the committee shall then make appropriate recommendations. Step 15. The committee will prepare a final report that contains a description of the different aspects of the complaint, the process followed and the background information, and documents that support or refute each aspect of the complaint. Click the next button to continue. Now that we have understood the different stages of the complaint mechanism, let's understand how the victim of sexual harassment can register their complaint. Click each tab to learn more. In case of sexual harassment at workplace, there are 2 parties, the aggrieved and the respondent. For taking a disciplinary action, the woman's complaint may form the statement of the imputation of misconduct or misbehavior. In the case of sexual harassment, the complaint itself may be treated as a charge sheet against the respondent. The charge sheet gives a clear, unambiguous, and precise notice to the respondent about the charges held against him. Framing a charge sheet also helps the ICC in deciding on the case and making recommendations. To conduct an unbiased and fair inquiry, it is important for the ICC to be aware of the rights of the respondent also. He should be provided with a copy of the complaint, the charge sheet, and the list of documents and witnesses. Based on these documents, the respondent needs to submit written statement in his defense. It is also important to know that the respondent is innocent till proven guilty and has right to due process and fair treatment. In his written statement of defense, the respondent could either accept the charges made against him in the complaint, or he may plead innocence. If he accepts the charges held against him, the ICC should record their findings on each charge and make appropriate recommendations. If the respondent pleads innocence, then the ICC should conduct a formal inquiry. There may be a scenario where the respondent does not submit a written statement of his defense. In such cases, the ICC may itself initiate the inquiry process. There may be scenarios where the respondent does not cooperate with the ICC. In such cases, the ICC has the right to adjourn the case to a later date, for up to 30 days from the date of adjournment, if the respondent fails to appear before the complaints committee within the specified time, or does not plead guilty or innocence. The ICC have the right to arrive at a decision based on the available records, if the respondent fails to give a written statement of his defense, or does not cooperate with the complaints committee. Once both the parties have submitted the written statements, a date is fixed for starting the inquiry. During the inquiry, the oral and documentary evidences along with the witnesses are examined. It is important that the committee should not seek any evidence or examination based on the aggrieved woman's character, personal life, and conduct. Click the next button to continue. Now that we have learned about the complaint mechanism and the process followed by ICC, let's learn about the inquiry conclusion process and the important components of the inquiry report. Click each tab to know more about the inquiry conclusion process. It is important that the Internal Complaints Committee completes the inquiry within 90 days from receipt of the complaint. The Internal Complaints Committee should meet and discuss the available documents and evidences, and then proceed to record the findings. After the discussion, the committee may come up with one of the following findings. Charges are proved. In this case, the ICC needs to conclude the case and mention appropriate action to be taken for each charge. Allegations are not proved. Here, the ICC closes the case concluding no further action required. The ICC may recommend steps to be taken by employer to create safe working environment. Complaint is found to be false or malicious. In this case, the ICC needs to take appropriate action against the woman, as per the service rules. Once the inquiry of the sexual harassment case is completed, the ICC needs to report its findings to the employer within 10 days from the date of completion of the inquiry. The inquiry report should include all the details related to the inquiry process, including all the dates related to the inquiry process, people involved in the inquiry, minutes of the meeting of all the proceedings, evidences and documents submitted and examined, and findings of the committee. The report also includes the conclusion and appropriate action taken. Click the next button to continue. So far, we have learned about how you can raise a sexual harassment complaint via the Internal Complaints Committee. Now, let's learn about another way for victims to register a sexual harassment complaint. The Ministry of Women and Child Development has launched an online platform to enable women workers to file complaints related to sexual harassment at the workplace. Click each tab to learn more. What is SHE-Box? The Sexual Harassment Electronic Box, SHE-Box, is an effort by the Government of India to provide a common and simple access to every woman, irrespective of her work status, to register complaints related to sexual harassment at the workplace. Once a complaint is submitted to the SHE-Box, it will be directly sent to the concerned authority for proper redressal and action. The SHE-Box site can be reached at www.shebox.nic.in. Who can file a complaint? Any woman facing sexual harassment at their workplace can register their complaint through this online portal. This includes women from both the organized and unorganized sector. Those who had already filed a written complaint with the concerned Internal Complaint Committee, ICC, or Local Complaints Committee, LCC, are also eligible to file their complaint through this online portal. How the SHE-Box works. Once a complaint is submitted to the portal, it will be directly sent to the ICC or LCC of the concerned organization. Through this portal, the Ministry of Women and Child Development and the complainant can monitor the status and progress of inquiry. Click the next button to continue. Lastly, let's take a look at two famous cases of sexual harassment and how they impacted the implementation of safety guidelines in organizations to prevent sexual harassment at workplace. Click each tab to learn more. Medha Kotwal Lele was the coordinator of Arlochna, a center for documentation and research on women and other women's rights groups. She, along with other such groups, petitioned the Supreme Court highlighting a number of sexual harassment at workplace cases because the Vishakha guidelines were not implemented effectively. The court was required to specifically look at whether individual state governments implemented the procedure and policy required by the Vishakha guidelines and other such court orders. Upon conducting the inquiry, the Supreme Court issued the following directions. In a disciplinary action, the report of the ICC or LCC is deemed to be an inquiry report. The report from ICC or LCC should be treated as an inquiry report of a misconduct. Each of the complaints committees, ICC or LCC, shall be headed by a woman. Each committee shall also have an independent member. Seema Lepcha was a peon at the Central Bank, Gangtok branch. She was sexually harassed by the then chief manager of Gangtok branch, who used to ask her for sexual favors. It was also found that there was no complaints committee at their workplace, which was the violation of the Vishakha guidelines. A writ petition was filed in the High Court of Sikkim regarding the constitution of the complaints committee. The High Court of Sikkim issued the following directions in this case. The respondent should constitute complaint committee at the workplace. Organize awareness, as well as trainings to sensitize members. Engage in wider publication of the Vishakha guidelines. Frame proper policy to combat sexual harassment at workplace. Click the next button to continue. The accused in the sexual harassment case should be given which of the following documents: copy of the complaint, charge sheet, the statement of the imputations, statement of the manager. Select 3 correct options and click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options. That's great. You have selected the correct options. The respondent in a sexual harassment case is provided all the above documents, along with list of documents and evidences. An employee has filed a sexual harassment complaint to the Internal Complaints Committee. How long must she wait for the inquiry process to complete? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days. Select the correct option and click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options. That's great. You have selected the correct answer. The Internal Complaints Committee is required to complete the inquiry within 90 days from receipt of the complaint. Who can file complaint related to sexual harassment at the workplace through She box? Woman working in government office. Woman working in a private company. Woman not working anywhere. Woman working in the unorganized sector. Select 3 correct options and click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
ऐसे में जस्ट एक मन में सवाल आया, वुमन नॉट वर्किंग एनीवेयर। एक वीडियो इन्होंने दिखाया था, उस वीडियो में एक लड़की बोल रही थी कि अगर आप कंपनी में काम भी नहीं कर रहे हो लेकिन आप विजिट कर रहे हो, किसी भी विजिटर के तौर पे आप जा रहे हो और तभी आपको अगर एनकाउंटर करना पड़े तब आप कर सकते हो। तो यहाँ पे वुमेन शी इज नॉट वर्किंग एनीवेयर, राइट? सो ये ऑप्शन भी राइट हो सकता है। सो टेक्निकली यहाँ पे मतलब हाँ, तो समझ में आया हमको क्या आप कहना चाहते हो। हम पढ़ हम सीख भी गए, लेकिन टेक्निकली ये आंसर भी राइट है क्योंकि वहां पे वीडियो में बताया गया है। या फिर आप लोग सॉर्ट आउट कर लीजिए क्या है।
That's great. You have selected the correct answers. Any woman working in the organized or unorganized sector can file a sexual harassment complaint through She box.
दोस्तों हम अपने फेवरेट जगह पे आ गए हैं, फिनिश पॉइंट पे, और ये कभी फिनिश नहीं होने वाला। ठीक है, आप देख सकते हो इट इज नॉट गेटिंग फिनिश्ड। दिस टाइम आई एम गोइंग टू क्लिक इट फॉर at least 100 times. By clicking 100 times it may get finished, we don't know na, we have to try. It's a government website, so we have to try. Nothing happens. Just keep it like this for at least for 2 minutes, क्योंकि दोस्तों अगले चंद सेकंड में हम अपने 3 घंटे कंप्लीट कर रहे हैं कोर्स के लिए, और अभी अपना डू मॉडल बाकी है जो कि 10 मिनट का है। बोलते हैं 10 मिनट का, लेकिन देखेंगे कितने मिनट्स लेंगे। सो अपने 3 घंटे अभी कंप्लीट होने के लिए लगभग 30 सेकंड्स बाकी है। मेरे को नहीं लगता है कि ये फिनिश कोई काम करने वाला है, तो हम करेंगे नेक्स्ट करने पे डू मॉडल आया है और यहाँ पे हम करेंगे प्ले, और लगभग 10 सेकंड के बाद में जब तक ये प्ले होगा तब तक
Here is an opportunity to practice and test your knowledge on the learned concepts from this lesson. Select a game mode. Apply and practice your newly acquired knowledge on the redressal of sexual harassment of women at workplace. Click the Start button. Monica works in the accounts department of a company. She approaches the Internal Complaints Committee, ICC about being sexually harassed by a senior employee of the company. What is the process that the ICC should follow? Click Next to move to the question. Arrange the following steps in the correct order, in which they are followed by the ICC. Based on respondent's statement, proceed with the inquiry. Receive written statement of defense from respondent. Receive Monica's complaint. Examine the witnesses and documents. Prepare a charge sheet. Drag and drop the steps in the correct sequence, and then click Submit. Oh no! You have not selected the correct options. But we believe in you. Try again. That's incorrect. The correct sequence is shown on screen. In case of sexual harassment at the workplace, the woman's complaint forms the statement of the imputation of misconduct or misbehavior. Forming the charge sheet helps the committee to give clear, unambiguous, and precise notice to the respondent about the allegations filed against him. It also helps the respondent to prepare the statement of his defense against the allegations. In case the respondent fails to appear before the ICC, give his written statement, or cooperate with the complaints committee, then the committee may come to a decision with the available records. Once the written submissions of both the parties are complete, the evidences and witnesses are examined, and final report of findings is prepared. That's incorrect. That's incorrect. The correct Sonia has been facing sexual harassment at her work. Arrange the following steps in the correct order, in which they are followed by the ICC. Based on respondent's statement, proceed with the inquiry. Receive written statement of defense from respondent. Receive Monica's complaint. Examine the witnesses and documents. Prepare a charge sheet. Drag and drop the steps in the correct sequence, and then click Submit.
सबसे पहले पिछली बार की मिस्टेक को देख के हमको पता चला है कि रिसीव मोनिकास कंप्लेंट सबसे पहले है जो स्टेप 1 में आएगी। उसके बाद में ही तुरंत ही प्रिपेयर करेंगे चार्ज शीट प्रिपेयर करने के बाद में लास्ट में हमको पता है कि एग्जामिन द विटनेस डॉक्यूमेंट्स आ रहे हैं, और उसके बाद में है रिसीव रिटर्न गिल्टी इनोसेंट based on the respondent statement, proceed with the inquiry, step 3 में, और receive written statement from the defense of submit करेंगे।
Oh no, you have not selected the correct options, but we believe in you. Try again.
गिल्टी चौथे पे आ रहा ना, गिल्टी चौथे पे आ रहा है, रिसीव पहले पे आ रहा है, रिसीव चार्ज शीट पे आ रहा है, यहाँ पे आ रहा है।
That's great. You have arranged the steps in the correct order. In case of sexual harassment at the workplace, the woman's complaint forms the statement of the imputation of misconduct or misbehavior. Forming the charge sheet helps the committee to give clear, unambiguous, and precise notice to the respondent about the allegations filed against him. It also helps the respondent prepare the statement of his defense against the allegations. In case the respondent fails to appear before the ICC, give his written statement, or cooperate with the complaints committee, then the committee may come to a decision with the available records. Once the written submissions of both the parties are complete, the evidences and witnesses are examined, and final report of findings is prepared.
Continue.
Sonia has been facing sexual harassment at her workplace by Harish, who keeps sending her pictures of semi-nude women. Sonia has repeatedly asked Harish not to send her such pictures. However, Harish has not stopped. After days of discomfort, Sonia has approached the Internal Complaints Committee to file a complaint. Click Next to move to the question. From the given statements, identify the good and bad practices to be followed by the Internal Complaints Committee. Listen to both the parties without any presumptions before starting the inquiry. Dismiss or transfer the respondent immediately on receiving a complaint. Keep the complaint and other relevant details confidential. Suggest ways to the aggrieved woman to frame allegations against the respondent. Treat the aggrieved woman with respect and provide her with the required support. Form a biased opinion about the aggrieved woman or the respondent. Ensure the safety of witnesses and supporters of the aggrieved woman. Disclose information about the complaint, aggrieved woman, respondent, or witnesses. Drag and drop each statement into the relevant box, and then click Submit.
अच्छा, तो गुड प्रैक्टिसेस में क्या आ रहे हैं देखेंगे. एंश्योर सेफ्टी विटनेसेस एंड सपोर्टर्स एग्रीव्ड वुमन, ये गुड प्रैक्टिस में आएगी. सजेस्ट वेज टू बी एग्रीव्ड वुमन टू फ्रेम एलिगेशन अगेंस्ट रिस्पोंडेंट, ये बैड प्रैक्टिस में आएगा. लिसन टू बोथ पार्टीज विदाउट एनी प्रिजम्पशंस, ये गुड प्रैक्टिस में आएगा. डिस्क्लोज इन्फॉर्मेशन अबाउट कंप्लेन एग्रीव्ड वुमन, रिस्पोंडेंट और विटनेसेस, ये बैड प्रैक्टिस में आएगा. ट्रीट द अनएग्रीव्ड वुमन विद रिस्पेक्ट, ये गुड प्रैक्टिस में आएगा. डिसमिस और ट्रांसफर रिस्पोंडेंट इमीडिएटली, नहीं ये बैड में आएगा. फॉर्म अ बायस्ड ओपिनियन, ये भी बैड में आएगा. कीप द कंप्लेंट इन अदर इवेंट डॉक्यूमेंट कॉन्फिडेंशियल, ये गुड में आएगा. सबमिट करते हैं.
That's great. You have selected all the correct statements. The Internal Complaints Committee should create an enabling meeting environment and treat the complainant with respect. They should discard any predetermined or biased opinion about both parties. The ICC should not discuss the complaint in the presence of the complainant or the respondent. It is also important that the ICC maintain the confidentiality of the complaint and do not disclose the identity of the parties involved. Abha and Sumit are part of a team at an organization, where Abha reports to Sumit. Sumit constantly asks Abha that they should go out for a late-night movie or dinner, which Abha finds very uncomfortable. She has turned down his request many times, stating that she wasn't comfortable going out with him. One day, Sumit tells Abha that if she turns down his request again, her ratings will go down in her monthly review. Abha approaches the Internal Complaints Committee to register her complaint against Sumit. Click Next to move to the question. Identify the steps that the Internal Complaints Committee should follow as part of the inquiry process. Review and understand the service rules, law, and policy. Prepare a plan to interview the complainant, respondent, and witnesses. List the relevant dates and events with respect to the complaint. Terminate the proceedings if the complainant or respondent fails to be present for 2 consecutive hearings. Arrive at a finding based on the documents and interviews, and make recommendations. Maintain confidentiality of the complaint and be impartial. Terminate the proceedings if the respondent fails to submit written statement of his defense. Select 5 correct options and then click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
So ये बोल रहे हैं कि advanced steps that the company should follow as a part of the inquiry. सबसे पहले तो any ICC should prepare a plan to complain, distribute, terminate, whatever finding, maintain continuity. कितनी चाहिए थी? टोटल 5. मेंटेन कॉन्फिडेंशियलिटी करनी चाहिए. टर्मिनेट प्रोसीडिंग्स, डिफेंस, After finding present document and make recommendation, terminate the proceedings. List prepare a plan to interview. एक दो तीन चार पाँच कितने?
That's great. You have selected the correct options. As soon as the committee receives the complaint from Abha, it should initiate the inquiry process. It is important that the committee knows and understands the services rules, law, and the policy clearly. The ICC should discuss the formal and informal ways of redressal with the complainant and make her aware about her rights. The complainant should be given assistance in conciliation if she chooses the informal redressal. The committee should be unbiased and fair in their conduct and must maintain the confidentiality of the complaint.
आए हमारे फेवरेट पोजीशन पे कंटिन्यू करने के लिए.
Yogita is the head of the Internal Complaints Committee, and she has conducted inquiry on a sexual harassment case. Now, she has to prepare an interim report on her recommendations and findings. Click Next to move to the question. Help Yogita determine the important elements to be included in the report. Prepare and submit the report within 10 days of completion of the process. Record her findings against each of the charges. List the reasons to support the findings and charges. Recommend the corrective steps or action to be taken. Include the past relationship history of the respondent. Select 4 correct options and then click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
सबसे पहले हम देखेंगे कि योग्यता डिटरमाइन इनपुट एलिमेंट्स टू बी इंक्लूडेड इन द रिपोर्ट में क्या-क्या prepare submit report within 10 days completion of the process. Record her findings against each.
Oh no, you have not selected the correct options. But we believe in you. Try again.
योग्यता डिटरमाइन रिपोर्ट एलिमेंट्स prepare the report.
That's great. You have selected all the correct options. Yogita must submit a report of her findings and recommendations within 10 days of completion of the inquiry process. It is important that the report includes her findings for each of the charges against the respondent. The report should have list of corrective steps or the need of disciplinary action to be taken against the respondent. The inquiry report puts a final on to the controversy involved in the matter, so that the dispute brought before the committee by the aggrieved woman is set at rest. Rashi works in a private company. Recently, her company organized a picnic at a nearby place. During the office outing, one of her teammates, Jayesh, tried to touch her inappropriately. Rashi feels humiliated and wants to take action against the sexual harassment she faced. Later she came to know that her company does not have an internal complaints committee. What should she do now? Ignore Jayesh's act as if nothing has happened. Register her complaint on the She Box, an online complaint management system. Resign from the company and look for another job. Discuss the incident with the company's HR. Lodge a formal complaint with the police about the harassment. Select 3 correct options and then click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options. That's great. You have selected all the correct options. Rashi should not tolerate such behavior of Jayesh. In the absence of a formal complaints committee in her company, she can lodge a complaint at the She Box, the online complaint system. Rashi can also approach the local police station to make a formal complaint against Jayesh. For non-compliance of the act, Rashi's company could be penalized of a monetary penalty of rupees 50,000. Now try applying your skills in another situation. Test your newly acquired knowledge on the redressal of sexual harassment of women at workplace. Click the Start button. Apply and practice your newly acquired knowledge on the redressal of sexual harassment of women at workplace. Click the Start button to begin this activity. Test your newly. Suman is a part of the Internal Complaints Committee in an organization. She is working on a sexual harassment complaint received from one of the employees, Neha. Now, Suman has to conduct interviews with Neha and the perpetrator. Click Next to move to the question. Help Suman create a preparation plan before conducting the interviews. Create an independent confidential file of the complaint and the other documents. Review the law and the POSH policy. Make a list of all the dates and events relating to the written complaint. Define the questions or points that require further clarification. Prepare questions on past personal relationships of the respondent. Select 4 correct options and then click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options. The Internal Complaints Committee is working on a sexual harassment case. It has conducted the inquiry and now has to prepare the final report. What are the key points that must be included in the final report? Names of both parties, date of complaint, case discussed, and details of ICC members. Nature of allegation and statements of both parties. Respondents' statements and defenses made before the ICC. Presiding officer's findings against each charge, along with supporting reasons. Conclusion and recommendations for corrective actions. Recommended disciplinary action, based on the severity of the misconduct. Compensation to be paid to the aggrieved woman. Select 6 correct options and then click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
I think name of the both parties, date of complaint can be case discussed, details as members. Major allegations, date of both parties, respondent statements and defense made before ICC, presiding officers findings, I guess. Reasons, conclusion, recommendation, correct actions. Correct actions? No.
Vibha conducts workshops for creating awareness about sexual harassment at the workplace and how it affects the person facing the harassment. She needs to prepare a notice that can be displayed at appropriately visible places to inform employees about the POSH Act, 2013. Click Next to move to the question. Help Vibha determine the important points to be included in the notice. Key points of the POSH policy and service rules. Acceptable and non-acceptable behavior at workplace. Penal consequences of sexual harassment at the workplace. Consequences for non-compliance of the POSH Act. Benefits of implementing POSH at workplace. Ways to improve work efficiency and productivity. Drag the correct options and drop them in the box, and then click Submit. Wanya works for a non-governmental organization for women's safety and development. She has to conduct a workshop to create awareness about the sexual harassment electronic box, She Box. Click Next to move to the question. Help Wanya identify the various steps involved in registering a complaint using She Box. Fill the registration form and click the Submit button. Click on the link, Confirm my email and create my account provided in email. Click on Register your complaint tab. Generate a new password. Choose the employment category, government or private. View status of the complaint by using the registered email ID and password. A confirmation message is sent to your email address. Drag and drop to arrange the steps to register a complaint using She Box and then click Submit.
सबसे पहले जो स्टेप है वो है स्टेप 1 रजिस्टर। लगता है कि रजिस्टर कंप्लेंट टैब पहले आएगा, उसके बाद में आएगा एक्चुअली मैं तो गया ही नहीं कि शायद रजिस्टर कंप्लेंट टैब, उसके बाद में शायद ये है, उसके बाद में क्लिक ऑन द कंफर्म।
Oh no! You have not successfully completed this lesson. Look at the watch video and try again. Click the Try Again button to retake the test. Nidhi and Rohan are teammates in the IT department of their organization. They both have been consistent performers and are expecting a promotion. However, Nidhi got promoted. Out of professional jealousy, over the past several weeks, Rohan has been spreading rumors about Nidhi and has been accusing her of having a personal relationship with their manager. These false rumors have left Nidhi feeling humiliated and tormented. So she approaches the Internal Complaints Committee to seek redressal. Click Next to move to the question. Arrange the steps in the order that ICC will follow upon receiving Nidhi's complaint. Forward the complaint to the presiding officer. Discuss the formal and informal resolution options. In case of non-conciliation, proceed with proper, unbiased investigation. In case of conciliation, record the terms of settlement and provide a copy each to the employer, the complainant, and the respondent. Receive and acknowledge receipt of the complaint. Drag and drop the steps in the correct sequence, and then click Submit.
Okay. सबसे पहले तो ICC forward the complaint to the presiding officer. Discuss the form case of non-conciliation. The complaint. सबसे पहले तो receive and acknowledge receipt of the complaint. Step 1 में. Okay. So जिस complaint के बाद उसके बाद में forward the complaint to the presiding officer. ठीक है. Discuss the formal and novel resolution options. In case of resolution options, and in case of non-conciliation, proceed with the proper unbiased investigation. No, that's the conciliation. Submit.
Suman is a part of the Internal Complaints Committee in an organization. She is working on a sexual harassment complaint received from one of the employees, Neha. Now, Suman has to conduct interviews with Neha and the perpetrator. Click Next to move to the question. Help Suman create a preparation plan before conducting the interviews. Create an independent confidential file of the complaint and the other documents. Review the law and the POSH policy. Make a list of all the dates and events relating to the written complaint. Define the questions or points that require further clarification. Prepare questions on past personal relationships of the respondent. Select 4 correct options and then click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
हाँ, लगभग 3 घंटे 26 मिनट पास हो चुके हैं. अगला क्वेश्चन है Suman create a preparation plan before conducting the interviews. Okay, so create independent convention file, compare the documents, review POSH policy, make a list of all dates, events, written complaint, define questions, prepare questions. ना 1 2 3 4 ठीक है. प्रिपेयर क्वेश्चन से पास रिस्पॉन्ड होनी चाहिए.
The Internal Complaints Committee is working on a sexual harassment case. It has conducted the inquiry and now has to prepare the final report. What are the key points that must be included in the final report? Names of both parties, date of complaint, case discussed, and details of ICC members. Nature of allegation and statements of both parties. Respondents' statements and defense as made before the ICC. Presiding officer's findings against each charge, along with supporting reasons. Conclusion and recommendations for corrective actions. Recommended disciplinary action, based on the severity of the misconduct. Compensation to be paid to the aggrieved woman. Select 6 correct options and then click Submit. Click on the audio icons to hear the options.
Internal Complaints Committee is working on a sexual case, conducted inquiry and now has to prepare the final report. So सबसे पहले name of the both parties रहेंगी, nature allegation रहेगी, respondent statements रहेगा, presiding officer finding रहेगी, correction actions नहीं है, recommendation disciplinary action business misconduct रहेगा, compensation movement रहेगी.
Vibha conducts workshops for creating awareness about sexual harassment at the workplace and how it affects the person facing the harassment. She needs to prepare a notice that can be displayed at appropriately visible places to inform employees about the POSH Act, 2013. Click Next to move to the question. Help Vibha determine the important points to be included in the notice. Key points of the POSH policy and service rules. Acceptable and non-acceptable behavior at workplace. Penal consequences of sexual harassment at the workplace. Consequences for non-compliance of the POSH Act. Benefits of implementing POSH at workplace. Ways to improve work efficiency and productivity. Drag the correct options and drop them in the box, and then click Submit. Vanya works for a non-governmental organization for women's safety and development. She has to conduct a workshop to create awareness about the sexual harassment electronic box, She Box. Click Next to move to the question. Help 1 year, identify the various steps involved in registering a complaint using SheBox. Fill the registration form and click the Submit button. Click on the link, confirm my email and create my account provided in email. Click on Register your complaint tab. Generate a new password. Choose the employment category, government or private. View status of the complaint by using the registered email ID and password. A confirmation message is sent to your email address. Drag and drop to arrange the steps to register a complaint using SheBox and then click Submit.
देखेंगे इसका आंसर क्या है, एक बार वापस से ढूंढेंगे इसका आंसर को हम। शायद कुछ गलती हो गई हो हमसे। हम देखेंगे अपनी क्या गलती है। सबसे पहले है रजिस्टर योर कंप्लेंट। ठीक है, रजिस्टर योर कंप्लेंट करना चाहिए सबसे पहले। बाद में एम्प्लॉयमेंट कैटेगरी चूज करनी चाहिए। क्या होगा एम्प्लॉयमेंट कैटेगरी? हाँ, ये उसके बाद में रजिस्ट्रेशन सबमिट करना चाहिए। फिल रजिस्ट्रेशन सबमिट बटन करना चाहिए। ठीक है, और कंफर्मेशन मैसेज टू ईमेल एड्रेस। कंफर्मेशन मैसेज ईमेल एड्रेस। ठीक है, क्लिक ऑन द कंफर्म माई ईमेल। कंफर्म माई नहीं कंफर्म टू ईमेल एड्रेस। उसके बाद में कंफर्म माई ईमेल और जनरेट न्यू पासवर्ड और वेरीफाई कंप्लेंट। ठीक है ना?
Congratulations! You have successfully completed this lesson. Click the Finish button to complete the lesson.
हाँ, यहाँ पे ये भी फर्स्ट टाइम जो एक्सप्लोर मॉड्यूल जो है ना वो कंप्लीट दिखा रहा है। डू मॉड्यूल तो कंप्लीट नहीं दिखा रहा है। और ये 58% ही है अभी तक। शायद लॉग आउट करके एक बार लॉगिन करने पे पता चलेगा कि, और यहाँ पे करेंगे नेक्स्ट करके देखेंगे एक बार नेक्स्ट, क्योंकि एक्सप्लोर मॉड्यूल तो पहले हो चुका था शायद। अभी घंटे हो गए, 3 घंटे 33 मिनट। एक्सप्लोर मॉड्यूल, डू मॉड्यूल तो अभी हो गया। एक्सप्लोर मॉड्यूल मेरा ऑलरेडी टिक मार्क है। ये वीडियो को करते हैं यहीं पे स्टॉप, क्योंकि ये बहुत ही लेंथी वीडियो हो गया है। आपको प्रॉब्लम्स पता चल गई होंगी क्या है क्या नहीं है। फिर भी एक बार हम क्या करते हैं, हम करेंगे एक बार करेंगे सब डिज़ाइन 1, कोड एक्सपेक्टेशन 1, सब 1 यहाँ पे लिखेंगे नॉट वर्किंग। अच्छा, ये आ गया सर्टिफिकेट। अरे वाह व्यू सर्टिफिकेट। हाँ, तो अच्छी बात है ना, सर्टिफिकेट आ गया। थैंक यू दोस्तों।